This work session of the Board of Education of the Cleveland Municipal School District will come to order. Mr. Stockdale, please call the roll.
Ms. Ellicott?
Here.
Mr. Billups?
Here.
Mr. Briggs? Ms. Jones?
Here.
Pastor Jones? Mrs. LeBron?
Here.
Mrs. Peak?
Here.
Dr. Sridhar?
Here.
Mrs. Welch-Howell? There are currently 7 members present.
Thank you, Mr. Stockdale. And Mr. Briggs will be here shortly. I ask everyone who wishes to rise and participate in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. While the board does not ordinarily provide for public participation at our work sessions, we are doing so this evening to give our community additional opportunities to address the board prior to our vote on building brighter futures. During this segment of the agenda, we will hear all public comment on all agenda or non-agenda items. The public participation period will be for persons who submitted the online request to speak form only, to address the board for up to 3 minutes each. There will be only one speaker during each time slot, and that is the speaker that gets called up. There will be no substitutions of speakers. I ask that everyone maintain and respect the 3-minute time limit. We will be adhering to it, and we will cut mics off if we need to. We will not be keeping our staff here late tonight to accommodate for additional time for public participation. We ask that folks listen up as we read your names, and if I do miss anyone, if they come in by the end of the period, or if anyone is not here when they are called, I will return to their names at the end to ensure that folks have an opportunity. I know the weather is rough out there. All right, we'll go ahead and start with students first. Nada El Fadil. Nada? The mic is right up here, thank you.
Good evening, board members. My name is Nada El Fadil. I'm a junior at Campus International High School. Thank you for giving me the chance to speak here. As the district continues to explore the merger between Campus International High School and John Hay, I want to share a student perspective on something that feels very important for the future of the merged school, maintaining the strength of the IB program. IB is more than just a curriculum. It's a way of learning that encourages us to think globally, write critically, and engage with the world around us. At Campus International High School, our teachers have been specially trained to support that kind of learning. They know how to guide us through the extended essay, internal assessments, and the unique expectations that make IB what it is. Younger teachers, or teachers who are more connected to current events and global issues, are essential for the IB program, as they often help students understand the world we're studying in real time. Because of that, I hope the district will consider ways to ensure that our current IB-trained teachers can continue teaching in the merged school. Even as staffing decisions take seniority into account, their experience with IB is something students truly rely on, and it would help create a smoother transition for everyone. Next year will be an especially important and sensitive year for many of us who will be seniors in the IB program. It's
Good afternoon. My name is Kaylani. I'm a junior at Lincoln West Global Studies, and I'm here tonight to support the Brighter Futures for all CMSD students. This means more opportunities for the classroom for everybody, and that's why I'm here to support building a brighter future because I am one of those students. I've done my research, and personally I am shocked to learn that only some CMSD students in schools have career pathways in schools and the others, some don't get college credits. And that some other students are set up for success after school and some others are not. Yeah, thank you. Where was I? That personally to me is not fair, and not fair to the other students who don't get those opportunities. And no matter what neighborhood we live in or what school we attend to, we deserve to have all those courses and prepare for college and careers and for our futures because we are the next generation. We must make sure that we are ready to take the next step, and so I applaud for our district for creating this plan. All CMSD deserves a brighter future, and I ask the board to please approve of this plan, and thank you. Have a good one, you guys.
Thank you, Kehlani. Marilia Tsirikis Karapanos. Feel free to adjust the mic to your needed height.
Good evening, Dr. Morgan and members of the board. My name is Marilia Tsirikos Karapanos. I'm a junior at Campus International High School and the president of Student Council. Today, I would like to bring your attention to some of the questions among students at Campus International High School about the merger with John Hay. Firstly, I would like to state that I understand why schools needed to merge, and I'm grateful that Campus International High School did not get shut down. However, students, teachers, parents, and staff are wondering what will happen to our International Baccalaureate program. The IB program has two areas in high school: the MYP, which is the middle years program in the 9th and 10th grade, which leads up to the diploma program, the DP, in the 11th and 12th grade. Without the fundamentals taught in the MYP, it would be impossible for students to adapt to the learning process that the DP offers. In the merger with John Hay, you and the board must make sure that both programs will be structured and set up in a successful way for students to prosper. Second, the main issue brought up by students is how the educational system will work. Will students from campus be able to choose a John Hay path of science, engineering, etc., and vice versa with students of John Hay trying to join the IB? If so, how will they choose and when will the opportunity be given to them? Also, John Hay students have had honors and AP classes provided to them in all years of high school, which adds to their cumulative GPA. Campus International students only have recognized honors courses in the last 2 years of high school. With the merger, would class rank from all three schools of John Hay and campus combine? It wouldn't be fair to rank students this way, considering the upperclassmen didn't all have the same opportunities as students in John Hay. Will the top 10 students suddenly drop to the top 50th? Because that wouldn't be fair to all the seniors who have worked hard for 3 years, receiving the highest GPAs possible in our schools. Would the seniors be able to be left alone just for the next year since we're being the most affected? Would we be able to graduate and keep valedictorians and salutatorians from each of the 4 merging schools for the graduating class of 27? Finally, I would like to bring up concerns for our teachers. The IB program cannot work without teachers who do know the curriculum. Some of the teachers at Campus International have been IB trained, but not all, due to a lack of effort made by the district over the years. If we can't keep all the teachers for both the MYP and DP, how are students supposed to follow the IB ideals and curriculum? It is not as simple as reading a handbook and directing a class. It takes time, experience, deep understanding, and respect for the IB program, which all teachers at Campus International High School have. I hope, Dr. Morgan and members of the board, that you take the time to understand these needs. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Marilia. Next, Jalen Cater. Jalen. Benjamin Cronister.
Good evening.
Evening.
Thank you. Sorry, I wasn't expecting a response. I would like to begin by mentioning that I hold a viewpoint that I've heard echoed among many of my colleagues across the district, which is that the need to merge or close schools has been clear for a while now. Most people I've spoken with have shared my sentiment that it isn't so much the what of the BBF process as it is the how with which Building Brighter Futures has been carried forward that has created consternation and frustration. However, my moderately ruffled feathers aside, I believe I've found my way to a place of optimism about all this. To that end, my actual concern this evening is focused on our students and concerns an issue of perception that I think actually presents us with a remarkable opportunity. The schools in our building, Davis Aerospace and Maritime and the Cleveland High School for Digital Arts, will be merging into a single school that, at the moment, is to be called Benjamin O. Davis Jr. High School. As a fellow Benjamin, I'm tickled by that, and I certainly do not dispute our proposed namesake's worthiness. I could even see our new team names or mascots being the Red Tails, which I think is kind of neat. Unfortunately, General Davis's name comes with some baggage in our district, and I'd like to know if it's not too late to change it. First, it is a mouthful. Benjamin O. Davis Jr. High School is about as clunky as Cleveland High School for Digital Arts, which was also clunky. Second, because the general was named for his father, it creates some confusion that was brought up by our parents at our community meeting, which is that the new name sounds like we're a middle school, a junior high school, which, of course, we aren't. Additionally unfortunate, and I did not know this until recently, is that the old Aviation High School in Cleveland, its former location just down the road from our current home, was also named for General Davis and is the site where our district's first black superintendent shot himself to death in 1985. I didn't know about that until one of our students did a quick Google search and found that information. Unfortunately, that headline is forever tied to General Davis's name, particularly when being used as a CMSD school site. That feels like an inauspicious omen to me. Most notable, I think, is the fact that the school's new name gives the strong impression this merger process has winners and losers. Students at Digital have come away feeling, and I can't say I blame them, that because the new school name incorporates a major aspect of the old name, that being Davis, that Digital Arts is somehow the loser in all this, and that they, the students, are therefore losers by extension. In a building where we've already dealt with significant conflict between student bodies in the past, I think it's important that we be sensitive to student sentiment. The question then was raised, and ultimately the only avenue we were directed toward is to appeal directly to you, the board. My proposal is this: please let us choose our own building's name. We can create a simple nomination and voting process handled by our transition team or some other committee within the school. We can make it transparent, public, and openly available to our stakeholders. It could even be a great tie-in project for civics or math students. We can use ranked choice voting or hold multiple rounds to ensure every voice is heard. Please let us create and choose our own name. We can make sure to include General Benjamin O. Davis Jr. as one of the options. I am nearly done. Doing this will allow our newly combined school to begin with all students on an even footing and give the kids a sense of ownership and pride, something extremely valuable when building a new school's
Thank you,
culture.
Mr. Cronister.
Please let us name our own school.
Rebecca Lajard.
Good evening to the board. My name is Becca Laharde, and I teach multilingual students and newcomers at John Marshall School of Civic and Business Leadership. This is my 9th year in CMSD and my 3rd school in the district. I am not afraid of change. I'm here to advocate for John Marshall to remain 3 small schools rather than merge into 1 school. I will provide numbers and data that align with the goalposts and guardrails for Building Brighter Futures. Building Brighter Futures claims that enrollment of 500 students creates a healthy school environment. JMCBL currently has an enrollment of 482. According to the shared data document, John Marshall campus is at 95% capacity. Enrollment has been trending up for all 3 schools, and we have been capped for the past 8 years. Your argument does not apply to John Marshall. Building Brighter Futures has a goal of offering AP and college courses to every high schooler. John Marshall campus offers 11 AP courses that students at any school can currently access. John Marshall campus offers 16 electives across the arts that are accessible across all 3 schools today. Finally, we are the only campus in the district that offers Spanish, Swahili, and Japanese as foreign language options. Again, students from any school can take any foreign language. The opportunities that you are calling for are already offered to every student on John Marshall's campus. Building Brighter Futures wants all students to have access to robust athletics, the arts, and clubs. Under our current small school model, students have campus-wide access to sports and clubs. We have one football team, one chess team, one drumline, and one drama club. Building Brighter Futures wants all students to access career pathways. All students on John Marshall's campus already currently have access to alternative career pathways that include civic and business, IT, and engineering. 10 years ago, John Marshall was a comprehensive campus. The 5-year graduation rate in 2010-2011 was 53%. Since transitioning to 3 smaller, specialized, intentionally designed, and intensive environments, graduation rates have climbed. JMCBL's 5-year graduation rate last year was 90%. By combining John Marshall into one campus, you might save around $250,000 in admin salaries. Is that amount of money worth a declining graduation rate? Is $250,000 worth a diminished learning environment, less support, increased safety issues, and an easier ability for scholars to fall through the cracks? My final question to the board is this: are you voting on each individual school merger, or are you voting on Building Brighter Futures as a whole? If you are voting on BBF as a whole, I will know that this entire show of listening to the community is a charade. If you are voting on each school merger, I urge you to vote no on merging all 3 Marshall schools into one campus. We already have the benefits of one campus, but without the personalized support that can only be offered in a small school model, graduation rates will decrease, safety concerns will increase, and we will be less able to support our scholars in the tailored ways they deserve.
Thank you, Ms. Laharde.
Thank you.
Jennifer Woody.
Good evening, CL Dr. Morgan and members of the governing board. Dr. Morgan, thank you for your visionary leadership in creating opportunities and future experiences that will provide CMSD students with greater access and opportunities in preparation for college and other pathways. As the leadership voice for the Euclid Park community, I want to stress and reiterate that everything envisioned for CMSD students is either happening at Euclid Park or we are aligned and ready to implement it. The only reason Euclid Park is under consideration for merger is its building size, not its safety, not its lack of culture or academic progress. In fact, the recent OST scores for 3rd grade show that 38% of 3rd graders in Ohio are proficient or above in reading. Euclid Park's proficiency rate of 35% reiterates that our academic momentum is aligned with the state average. While there is work to be done, it can be accomplished at Euclid Park without disrupting the momentum, the culture, or ignoring the voices of the EP families. In fact, Euclid Park families are boisterous that they will not attend the recommended CMSD campus, instead will seek other opportunities in surrounding districts. Taking away Euclid Park as an option takes away the only CMSD school in the south region of Collinwood. There will be no CMSD schools south of Euclid. We cannot be overconfident that we will not lose our families. I once heard that as long as there are questions, there is hope. Therefore, I respectfully ask with hope if one member of the board will attend Euclid Park's family meeting tomorrow, December 3rd at 6 p.m. at Euclid Park. I'm not asking you to speak. I'm not even asking you to show your presence. You can hide in the crowd. But I am asking for you to be present and listen to the families. This meeting is important to the Euclid Park community to be heard before the vote takes place. Since families are not here, please come to where they will be. Finally, I always encourage people to come with not only their problem, but also solutions. The Euclid Park community has solutions. There are several, but one I will point out. It is proposed that each region have a small school option for families who value smaller learning communities. Please allow EP to be that school in their own community. Thank you for your time, and I hope to see you tomorrow night.
Sahar Shaman.
Greetings. I am here today as a 19-year veteran of CMSD, having taught at multiple high schools across the district, and since 2013, I've been with the School of One. Through this time, our district has faced many changes, but our schools have risen to the challenge. While we all know that change is necessary, I hope you will proceed thoughtfully to ensure that the desires and needs of the community are taken into account. I am here today not only as an educator, but as a family member of a beautiful Louisa May Alcott student. At both this meeting and the last one, the Louisa May Alcott community has come out to speak because we are invested in its future. As a math teacher, I respect the role of data in your decisions, but numbers cannot capture the full story. The Louisa May Alcott community is a powerful example of this. It is the only remaining K-5 building in the district and has cultivated such a close-knit culture that many of the teachers have chosen to enroll their own students or their own children there. The proposed three-school merger combining Alcott, Waverly, and Gallagher is the only elementary school merger that combines 3 schools. This would involve taking students from 2 schools that are used to and whose families desire a smaller school setting and merging them into Gallagher that already has over 750 students, creating a school of nearly 1,200 students. Merging 2 elementary schools is already a major adjustment. Merging 3 would be overwhelming for students and families and would drive many families, including mine, away from the district into other districts. Ideally, we'd like you to consider leaving Louisa May Alcott open. However, I urge you to at least consider delaying this merger until the new Marion Seltzer building opens. This school is only 1.5 miles away from Alcott, compared to the nearly 3 miles from Alcott that Gallagher is. Waiting would allow only 2 schools to merge this coming year and allow families that want to stay at a smaller school to remain at Louisa May Alcott, giving them more options of nearby buildings in the future. Finally, I ask you to reevaluate whether a single pre-K to 8th grade model is truly the best solution for all students. While convenience for families is important, student safety and developmental needs are more critical. Our youngest learners should not be exposed to the behaviors of middle school students. Furthermore, keeping students in one building from preschool to 8th grade means that their first major transition occurs in high school, a crucial time when credits begin to count. We should explore a mix of elementary, middle, and K-8 schools and analyze what truly serves our students best. As we work to build brighter futures, let's ensure that these changes reflect the voices of the families and students they are meant to serve. Keeping Louisa May Alcott open will show that you are actually listening at these meetings and willing to consider the needs and desires of our community.
Thank you. Areej Shuman. Areej Shuman.
Good evening. I'm here as a CMSD lifer. I've been a student since 1st grade, and I'm currently an intervention specialist at Louisa May Alcott. Most proudly, I'm the mother of a 4th grader at Alcott. I'm here on behalf of my daughter, the students in my K2 MD autism classroom, and humbly all students in special education across CMSD whom we feel have been neglected and overlooked in this plan. Building brighter futures may have worked for students like me, those whom, when given the opportunity, could navigate challenges and have a bright future, but it clearly doesn't take into consideration my child or our students who make up a third of ALCOT and a significant percentage of children who receive special education services in CMSD. When you put children who are already at risk of being lost, not only academically, but even physically, into a much larger, overstimulating environment, it shows a lack of concern for their academic and emotional growth, their sensory needs, and their safety, and it puts further strain on us families and staff. Has consideration been given to merging ALCOT with the new Marion Seltzer Elementary, rather than moving families who have chosen our small, accessible K-5 school to the largest K-8 school in the district? Or have you considered keeping K-5 as a specialty model and even expanding this model across CMSD neighborhoods to meet the desire of families like mine who don't want their little ones with teenagers? Your one-size-fits-most approach doesn't work for our students with special needs. If the board approves the recommendation to merge ALCOT with Gallagher, it hurts me to say, as a lifer, that my daughter will be leaving CMSD altogether. I'm hearing the same from CMSD special ed families who plan to take their children and use their autism or John Peterson scholarships to attend the growing number of small private schools that they can choose from in this new era. Even though we live outside of the district, I chose ALCOT for my child for the same reason that many of our families have: the small classes, an excellent academic record, an accessible design, and a phenomenal staff, if I do say so myself. If you want families to choose CMSD, really listen and act on what we are telling you that our children need. To you, my daughter may be just another data point, or my students might not give you the test scores that you need to move the state report cards, but to lose even one of them, like my Eden, who will probably one day run the metro parks and equip them all with tornado shelters, or Gabi, who will have the most organized library in the country, or Belle, who will walk the stage joyfully at graduation. Each one would be a devastating loss to our CMSD family. So I hope you choose to see their human value and make a better choice for our children's future.
Thank you. Sandra Flowers.
Hello, I'm Sandy Flowers, and I'm the CTU Chapter Chair for Tremont Montessori. If you recall, I spoke at the board meeting on October 29th requesting that if Tremont Montessori was a building that would be considered for closing, that our program be kept intact and moved and not merged with the traditional school or closed. We appreciate the district's commitment to the Montessori program and that the recommendation is to move our program intact to the Waverly building. We do have several concerns. We're hopeful that this means that our entire Montessori program, not just elementary regular education K-8 students, teachers, and paraprofessionals will move. Our Montessori program also includes our special education students and teachers and pre-K students and teachers that are part of our Children's House, which are pivotal to our program. We currently have 6 Children's House classrooms that are pre-K and K. All 6 need to remain to properly build our lower elementary from the bottom up. We're sad to leave the Tremont community and all that it has provided for our scholars, and believe it or not, we are sad to leave our building despite the condition that it is in. The outdoor space, local library and park, and large classroom sizes are some of its best features. We wish it could have been renovated or rebuilt as previously planned. At the board meeting, when the recommendations were made, President Ellicott asked if the Waverly building had enough space for the Montessori program. As you know, we're an AMS accredited school, the only elementary public AMS accredited school in the state of Ohio, and AMS recommends that for each student there is 40 square feet of a classroom space available. A great deal of Montessori big work occurs on our classroom floors and halls. The work takes up large areas of floor space, and I did bring some photos I can share. I was able to tour the Waverly building and notice that classrooms have built-in student cubbies, cabinets, and anchored teacher desks that take up significant floor space. We respectfully request that you keep this in mind when offering seats to new students. We certainly will welcome, educate, support, and acclimate all students and families to the Montessori program. However, class sizes need to take into consideration the space needed to maintain an authentic Montessori program. We request that our Building Brighter Futures transition team be consulted regarding the proper class size while reviewing the measurements of the classrooms at Waverly. We are also requesting the name of the building to be changed out of respect to the students, former students, and staff at Waverly Elementary, and in order to promote the Montessori program accurately. 20 years ago, when H. Barbara Booker and Dyke Montessori merged to Tremont Elementary, the name was changed to Tremont Montessori. Students from Tremont Elementary were able to stay in the available seats. However, many students and families still did not realize that the school was no longer a traditional program, regardless of the name being changed to Tremont Montessori. Some suggestions for the new name are Hicks Montessori, after the first Montessori school in CMSD, Shoreway Montessori to represent the neighborhood, or Near West Montessori to represent the region of the district. Lastly, we're also here to stand with our fellow union sisters and brothers.
Thank you, Ms. Flowers.
Thank you.
Patrick Warman. Please hand them to Mr. Britzloff over here to my left, and he'll distribute them to the board. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Patrick Mormon. I teach the two-year higher level language and literature class at the only IB high school in CMSD, Campus International High School. You heard from Riley and Nada a little bit ago. They're my students who are juniors. The International Baccalaureate is a global, holistic program that requires a full load of classes where inquiry-based and project-based learning is the norm. Students are made into creators of knowledge, not static receivers of knowledge deposits divorced from context or purpose. In short, the IB expects students to think, act, and problem solve like stakeholders of their world and community through an empowering pedagogy and approach to learning. Personally, over the past 4 years, I have done IB training, independent research on the English curriculum through the AFT, American Federation of Teachers, and have consistently brought the average overall L&L score up in my short tenure. I come before you all today to ask the board an important question. How will we ensure continuity and quality in the IB program when the current plan will likely limit the amount of IB-trained teachers who will join John Hay? Part of an IB program certification is having 6 trained DP teachers in each subject area. Diploma program is the junior-senior program. But with how the CBA is written today, my juniors will potentially be working with a brand new IB Lang and Lit and Theory of Knowledge teacher for their important year 2 of the DP program. As the DP L&L teacher and IB TOK teacher, I am responsible for preparing my scholars for 2 sit-down exams and 3 project-based IB assessments that cost a lot of money. If only one of these assessments is not submitted or properly delivered, the entire IB diploma my juniors have been working towards may be impossible to achieve due to scores. Without trained staff, the district's IB evaluation is at risk, and it just happened last year, and it will happen again in 2 years. If IB evaluation happens and staff continuity is not maintained, this will cost tens of thousands of dollars in IB fees and potential teacher training. This is a conservative estimate, not taking into account the high likelihood of turnover among IB teachers who do not receive proper timing or support to adapt to the program. But, most crucially, a lack of continuity in the IB program will cost my scholars the years of work they have put into the program. Campus is not as selective in enrollment. I teach students who really have to stretch themselves to get my college course done at a 3 or 4 or a C in the IB grading scale. But the research conducted by IB shows all students benefit at the college level from exposure to the rigor of an IB course and exam delivered properly in their high school career. Well, any remaining IB educators post-merger will no longer have the privilege of teaching any CMSD student regardless of GPA average and disposition, shuttering the IB for all nature of our program. We can at least do right by the scholars that remain and the new John Hay scholars that will potentially join in. It will be easiest for the district and union to simply follow the CBA rules in this merger and deal with the consequences that follow, like we always do. However, my juniors will potentially struggle to tackle the DP diploma pathway as a result, something you've been pouring thousands of dollars into to support them in. I hope you consider both the financial benefits of limiting turnover and evaluation expenses, along with the educational benefits of providing students with continuity in their IB learning by maintaining as many IB-trained teachers as possible in this merger through written mutual agreement to factor IB training and teaching experience into merger allocations. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mormon. Nicole Dawson. Nicole Dawson. Anne Miano.
Good evening.
Evening.
My name is Anne Miano, and I teach at Mary Bethune Elementary. I am here to represent my school. Mary McLeod Bethune lived from 1875 to 1955, and she embodied determination, faith, and leadership. The first in her family to learn to read, she founded a school for Black girls in Florida, which is now the Bethune-Cookman University. I could go on and on about her accomplishments, but I will leave it to you to read the song written by our scholars that honors her legacy. At the last board meeting, we asked, what can we do to honor Mary McLeod Bethune's legacy? Our proposal is try to rename one of our all-girls leadership schools after her, the Mary McLeod Bethune Girls Leadership Academy. We believe that doing so, Cleveland Metropolitan School District would clearly demonstrate its commitment to her legacy. Honoring Mary Bethune does not need to be abstract, and it should not end with renaming a building after her. The trailblazer who opened doors for her students would want us to fight for excellent public education for everyone. Every time I see the perfect storm slide, I think we may not be able to do anything about declining enrollment or birth rates, and we may not be able to control rising costs. But with collective action, we should be able to move the needle on school funding. We should demand that our schools are funded fully and fairly. And if communities want a small school, there should be a budget for that. We should demand better school funding, and we should not accept the austerity mindset that now controls our budgets and the threats of fiscal precaution from leaders who hand out tax breaks to the wealthy. With my remaining time, I would like to switch gears. On behalf of the students with IEPs in single classrooms across the district, I'm respectfully asking to see the plan for their classrooms today. These are our low incidence, intensive academic support, and intensive behavior intervention classrooms. If some students from Mary Bethune are not going to be welcomed at Daniel E. Morgan because of the type of classroom they need, a likely scenario with mergers across the district, their families deserve to know that before the board votes. As a school board, you should have that information before you vote. I hope that Dr. Morgan will be able to share the preliminary list of which schools will be at which types of classrooms will be at which schools this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Miano. Mayori Inthavong. Mayori Inthavong. Michelle Jones. Michelle Jones. Caitlin Hunt.
Good evening. My name is Katie Hunt, and I'm here to speak on behalf of my husband and I. We are here to express our deep concerns regarding the potential closure of Louise A. Matt Alcott Elementary. As parents of a student who attends Alcott, we strongly urge you to take into consideration the impact this school closure would have on our children, families, and our community. Our daughter has several disabilities, and Louisa May Alcott has been a place where she has truly been able to thrive. The smaller class sizes and close-knit environment allow teachers and staff to provide her with individualized attention and support she needs to succeed, something that would be extremely difficult to replicate in a large school setting. Alcott's dedicated educators have built strong relationships with their students, fostering both academic and emotional growth. The sense of belonging and community at this school cannot be measured in financial terms. For children like our daughter, who require stability and consistency, this environment is not just beneficial, it's essential. While we understand the district's need to make financially responsible decisions, we respectfully ask that you consider the long-term costs of disrupting the education and well-being of students who depend on smaller, more personalized learning environments. The benefits of maintaining schools like Louisa May Alcott reach far beyond immediate budgetary concerns. They impact the future success and inclusion of every child served there. I hope that you take into account the real human consequences of this decision and explore alternative cost-saving measures that do not sacrifice the progress and potential of our most vulnerable students. My husband and I have attended Brighter Builder Future community meetings, and it's been apparent from the beginning that decisions have been made in this matter before such meetings began. We are truly disappointed in the district's facade of providing a space where community input is truly valued. Further, announcing this recommendation the day after the 2025 election, followed by an endorsement by Mayor Bibb, makes us more disappointed in not just our CMSD leaders, but also our local leadership as a whole. Thank you for your time and consideration, and happy holidays.
Mignon Burkhalter.
Hello, board members. Hello, Dr. Morgan. First, I wanted to thank you and show my gratitude. I totally get the vision and the concept and the efforts of building brighter futures. And I'm glad to see that you guys are doing what needs to be done so that you can ensure that all CMS students can have everything that CMSD can offer to everyone. I'm standing here on behalf of Louisa May Alcott family and my scholar, Allison Burkhalter Sharp. You guys may know her as the little hero. Wanting a brighter future for my daughter is the reason why I enrolled her in Louisa May Alcott. I took her out of a district and put her there because of the reports in the news. I'm also a CMSD employee. And because of the good reports I heard about Louisa May Alcott, I put her there and I did not get disappointed. This is my IEP student / honor roll student / little hero. And I know that low enrollment, poor building conditions, and lack of educational opportunities were the criteria when you were making a selection for schools, for closures and merging. But when we look, the Louisa May Alcott community, when we look at the reasons why, we just really don't understand. And that's it, and that's all. I'm not going to talk about the numbers and everything. I think everybody that came before me pretty much gave you a good description of all that, so I'm going to cut it short. Enjoy the rest of your evening, and thank you for this time.
Thank you, Ms. Burkhalter. Next, Belinda Coates. Belinda Coates.
Good evening. My name is Belinda Coates. I'm the commander of the Criminal Justice Program at Glenville High School. Thank you for the opportunity to speak this evening. I come on behalf of Glenville High School students, staff, and community to urge you not to eliminate the criminal justice pathway at Glenville High School. This program is not a relic. It is a success story. Our technical skill attainment passage rates show a clear upward trend, roughly 56% in 2023, rising to mostly 90% in 24-25. This directly aligns to Guardrail 5.1 in increasing graduating students passing their career tech assessments. This kind of steady, measurable improvement is clear evidence of focused instruction, student support, and students meeting higher expectations. Eliminating it now would cut off the momentum and waste time, effort, and resources so many have invested. The recommendation to remove the pathway shocked and disheartened student, staff, and community members. This decision negates the years of community engagement and work that followed the merger of MLK and Glenville. That merger included commitments to build programs, and to eliminate it now is to renege on communities' commitments made by families, breaks the promises made after the merger in 2020, and leaves current students unable to finish the pathway and obtain their certifications anywhere else in the district. For more than 2 decades, this program has shown sustained concrete outcomes. Since 2007, we have maintained a 90% passage rate on the Emergency Telecommunications Certification exam. Graduates do not just earn certificates, but they step directly into their careers. Students have completed this program and they are hired by our district safety and security department. The lead officer at Glenville High School currently earned his credentials in the criminal justice program. The program was explicitly created in 2003 at MLK to bridge the gap between public safety and minority communities. The Cleveland Police Department has been actively involved in this program since 2006, not as a symbolic partner, but as a committed collaborator. For many of the students who do not go on to serve in careers in public safety, the pathway has still delivered essential life outcomes, and these are their words, not mine. It taught them discipline, leadership, empathy, and commitment to service, and it changed their perspective about law enforcement. In closing, I ask you to consider not only the data with our rising TSA rates and sustained 90% certification passage rate, but the larger human costs of removing this pathway. Broken promises to the community, lost opportunities for the current students, and the erasure of years of partnership and progress. Rather than eliminating the criminal justice pathway, I ask that you invest in it, support its continued improvement, and honor the commitments and promises that were made to the community after the 2020 merger. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Coates. Next, Cleveland Teachers Union President Sherry Obrinsky.
Good evening, Chair Ellicott, board members, and CEO Morgan. 2 weeks ago, I implored you to listen to staff, families, and community members to hear their feedback on the plan that was presented by Dr. Morgan just under a month ago. Over this past month, I've taken my own advice and listened to many members of our CMSD and Cleveland community as they told me, often candidly, what they thought regarding the proposed plan. Most echoed what I said to you at the last board meeting. There is a need to shrink the CMSD footprint and a desire to improve options for all of our students. But they have also expressed concerns, legitimate, serious doubts about what they've seen and heard or haven't heard from Dr. Morgan and his team since the plan was presented. One of the major concerns stems from the lack of clear planning for our students with special needs. You know, the most vulnerable students in our district. You've heard from parent and community advocates from Louisa May Alcott that they are concerned that special education students do not have a place at the Consolidated Gallagher next year. That message was amplified last week to all parents of students with special needs in schools that are impacted by the plan when they received a form letter from the district informing them that their children may not be transferring to their consolidated school with the rest of their peers. Seriously? Hundreds of families were told that there is no room at the inn for their children? This is abhorrent, not to mention a slap in the face to each of the families who have steadfastly supported this district through a substantial increase in their property taxes, not to mention their time and trust with their most precious gift, their child. How is it that when all of the deep analysis was done on each of the buildings and their student populations, that we don't have a map or chart that identifies all of our at-risk populations and how they will fit into their new placement? Do we actually have a plan or merely a concept of a plan? If I heard that the proposed mergers will displace students at several schools, like the students who are intended to merge at Gallagher and Harvey Rice and Jameson, I know district leadership has heard the same concerns and would think this information has been shared with the board. We'll hear even more on this tomorrow when our school teams provide their input to district leadership. I hope this information is shared with you by the CEO and his team, but if not, I will gladly share those concerns with you. While the U.S. Department of Education and the current President of the United States have no regard for students with special needs, I know that is not true of the people in this community. This plan must demonstrate that all of our students are important and deserve more. You have just over a week to listen, not in some box-checking perfunctory way, but really listen to the staff, families, and community members who work, learn, and live in Cleveland. I know you know the difference between citizens speaking their mind and messengers reading their lines. It is imperative that between now and December 9th, you crack out those red pens and get to work for all of the children of Cleveland, because this is not a rubber stamp moment. Thank you.
Thank you, President Obrinsky. Next, Keith Hunter. Keith Hunter.
Alcott in the house. Hi, my name's Keith Hunter. This is my daughter, Tara. We thought she was going to be speaking tonight. We kind of prepared for that, so we're going to do the best we can. My wife and I have lived in Edgewater community for about 4 years. Tara's been a student at Alcott for 2 years, and Alcott is part of the reason that we chose to stay in the community when we were blessed enough to be able to start looking at houses, because we saw, oh, it's a school that's within walking distance of our house. You know, that's nice. And we were right. We were right to have high hopes for it, because not only has she been progressing up through kindergarten and first grade, learning to read and write, but she's also she's found herself with a close-knit community that knows her by name, and the faculty and the staff there know who each person is, and they care. When they, when you come around the corner to pick them up, like they see through the window. That's like, okay, that's so-and-so's parent. There it's like they know and they care who these kids are. Excuse me. They've been able to attend to my daughter's needs. I know that they serve the needs of every student that's there. I know there's a concern about enrollment numbers and what that means for the kind of services that these kids are getting. I'm telling y'all, they're getting it at Alcott. It's a big deal. This is a special place, and I'm really concerned that they're talking about closing it. It's really been weighing on me. Been thinking about what to say coming up here. I thought I was going to be introducing Tara, and I was talking to her about, well, what do you like about your school? And at first, she was kind of quiet, because she can be quiet when she's in a new setting. But I realized it's not because she had nothing to say, it's because she liked all of it. It's because all of it is that special to her. She likes the PE classes and the art classes. She is all the time drawing. Right now on our kitchen table, we got 3 notebooks. She's filling all of them up at once. And that is in part because, you know, this kind of environment has helped bring that out of her. You know, and it's meant so much to have her there, and it really bothers me that we're talking about closing this down. And I'm even more concerned for the future of the special ed students that are there that may have nowhere to go if this thing goes through. And babe, hold on. All I can say, y'all, is this school, I know it's small, but it matters. These kids are getting what they need. They're getting set up well for where they're going next. It needs to stay open. And whether the school, but even if, whether it stays open or not, we need to know what's gonna happen for these special ed kids, because they're important.
Thank you, Mr. Hunter. All right, I will return to those who signed up who did not come up when I called earlier, just in case anyone has come in. Jalen Cater, Nicole Dawson,
Okay, don't be mad at me. I'm not Nicole Dawson. She didn't show up, but I'm Lila Parker, and I'm with Bolton Elementary.
I'm sorry, Miss Parker, we cannot have you comment if you have not signed up. I did say at the beginning that no substitutions were allowed. Please feel free to sign up for the next meeting. Next, Mayori Intavong. Mayori Intavong. Okay, that concludes our public participation period. This evening's work session consent agenda includes the minutes of the last board meeting of November 19th, 2025, and 3 legal resolutions. The chair will now entertain a motion to approve this work session's consent agenda consisting of items 4.02 through 5.03, the full titles of which are set forth in the board meeting agenda.
So moved. Second.
Thank you. Mr. Stockdale, please call the roll on this motion.
Ms. Ellicott?
Yes.
Mr. Billups?
Yes.
Mr. Briggs?
Yes.
Ms. Jones?
Yes.
Mrs. LeBrun?
Yes.
Mrs. Peak?
Yes.
Dr. Sridhar?
Yes.
Mrs. Welchow?
Yes.
Motion passes with 8 votes.
Thank you. The motion passes, the minutes are approved, and the resolutions are adopted. This evening's board meeting agenda also includes an additional 12 resolutions in the areas of finance, academics, and excellence in culture, which the board will vote on as part of its consent agenda on our December 9th board business meeting. Dr. Morgan, I'd like to turn it over to you to report on our Building Brighter Futures recommendation, and then after that, we will move to goals and guardrails.
Thank you so much, Chair Ellicott, and it's so great to hear all the questions and continue to get the feedback. As I always say, feedback is truly a gift. And I don't see the young lady that was from the Bolton community, but someone from our team can reach out and we can hear whatever question that is, because we can't substitute speakers, but we'll have someone to hear what that concern is, so we're tracking that as well. I'm going to switch over. So if we have the deck. All right. So as I did in the last one, I did want to make sure we were responding to the questions that not only we received in the last meeting, but then also the questions, some of the questions that actually came up today, we have responses because there's been a theme, as you've been hearing tonight, of some of the questions and feedback, and we also really want to make sure we can generate and get that feedback, so truly appreciate that. So just reminding everyone of the timeline, it is hard to believe that we are about a month out from when recommendation was announced, and now we're at the point of hearing feedback. We've been in the process of having staff meetings. We've been doing parent and community meetings. I know I've been in some of those. And it's been really great to hear the concerns of the community. I will say, even though this is one recommendation, it is one recommendation, we are listening to the feedback, because even in a recommendation, when we're listening to different pieces of the feedback, the recommendation as a whole, there are pieces of that we can take into consideration. So I know that there was a question around, is the listening all for naught if it's all one recommendation? Two things can be true at the same time, and so we are listening. Each individual community is really important, and we're taking that into consideration, and it only can fine-tune not only, it may not fine-tune some pieces of the recommendation, but it definitely fine-tunes implementation, because it truly takes the entire district community to get the implementation pieces in place.
Dr. Morgan, I just want to make sure that folks can hear you. I'm getting a little bit of an echo. Can the board hear okay?
I'm getting a lot of feedback.
A lot of feedback. Yeah. Let me see. Mr. Morris, can you hear? Okay. Is there anything that we can do to adjust? I've had my mic off, but I just want to make sure that you're audible to the full board, and
Yeah.
it sounds like the audience can hear you.
I'm looking at Patrick down there, and they'll help us out. I do know when we're in here sometimes on the stage feedback may be different from out there, but definitely let us know. Any board members, stop us if you don't hear anything, and then also out there, if you're getting anything, let me know, and I'll adjust. I'll also pull away from the...
It might help to reduce the volume on the monitor so there's not so much echo.
All right. Yeah, see, literally, feedback is a gift. But in this process, we are in the process of truly listening and really wanting to take that into consideration. I know tomorrow we'll have those input meetings from chapter chairs, so really looking forward to members of our executive leadership team meeting with all the chapter chairs to hear the input that has been gathered during this time. And then, of course, as Chair Ellicott has mentioned, our intention to not only bring the feedback and different things we've been listening to at next week's board meeting, but I know the board has an intention to vote, but that is also on the board to make those that final decision. All right. Just a reminder of what the recommendation is. I will not spend a lot of time here. Everyone knows where we are in terms of what the recommendation numbers are. And even as we were listening to the questions tonight, the questions we've been getting over time, a lot of the questions are implementation in nature. And so I just really want to continue to lean in, not only for our team to lean in terms of thinking about the recommendation, but just know that to implement a plan of this scale, it will take all of us, and we are committed to really making sure that this is a successful plan for all of our scholars, but also for the educators that are part of this wonderful system of ours. So just knowing that it'll take all of us as we look at moving forward. And also just a reminder, the benefits for those that are directly impacted by this plan, you see these numbers in terms of students having expanded opportunity. 100% of students impacted by this plan, whether they're in a transitioning school or a welcoming school or a moving school, will have equal or greater academic, extracurricular, or student support opportunities. 96% of them will attend an equal or greater star rating school, something we cannot deliver on right now. And 95% of them will attend an equal or better building quality or building condition building. And that's something we can't deliver on now. And this plan, over a course of a few years, saves us upward of $90 million. And so just know that these are metrics and numbers that we all need to lean into to provide that brighter future for our scholars, but also the financial target we need to hit, all of which we cannot do in our current configuration. And then those were the benefits of Building Brighter Future for the impacted students, but just know Building Brighter Futures will impact our entire community, CMSD community, as you can see from the benefits. And this is a slide that we've been sharing for a while now of 100% of our scholars being able to have access to college and career courses in high schools, something that we can't deliver on right now, and 100% of our elementary schools offering enrichment courses beyond art, music, and PE, as well as 100% of our students being in new or upgraded facilities. So I want to respond to board member questions that we've been getting, but then also respond to questions that we've been getting from the community. So One of the questions, and I know this was a big topic that I even heard in one of the family meetings I was at when I was at Valley View, which it was a lot of great feedback that we heard from Valley View, and a lot of great questions. And there's questions around, what if I want to explore other options? And I really want to make sure we hone in on this, that students, we are an open choice district. And so even as we're talking about welcoming schools and schools that are merging together and reserve seats, families have the option to choose another school. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that and how are we supporting families in making those decisions. So I want to talk a little bit about that. I know this is a very tiny slide and it's a lot to read, so I'm going to give you the headlines here. So there are two paths when we're thinking about students that are impacted by this plan. So if you are a student in a school with this recommendation, that we're asking that your school no longer have instruction for next year and be merged for another school community. Current students in kindergarten through 7th grade will have a reserved seat at a welcoming school, and the same thing with students in grades 9 through 11. The reason why 8th grade is not in there, because all 8th grade students will have to choose a high school. I'll talk about that in a moment. And of course, our 12th graders will be graduating at the end of this year and will not be a part of this Building Brighter Futures recommendation. But all students that are part of a school that is ending instruction at the end of this year and need to go to a welcoming school will have a reserved seat at their welcoming school. And if they're part of a specialized program, will have a welcoming seat at the school that is designated for them. Now, if you are a family member that needs a choice or want to make a choice outside of that welcoming school. So this became most prevalent, I know, when I was at the Valley View community. It is the only recommendation where a West Side school, a Southwest Side school, is being recommended to merge with a Northeast Side school, mainly because they are the same specialty school. It's a single gender, it's a boys leadership academy. And so knowing that families chose a boys leadership academy, we wanted to first start with giving families that option. But there are some families that would say, hey, I don't want to travel that far. That's a far distance if I live in the Southwest community. There are schools in the Southwest community, and this is the same with any other school that's impacted or student that's impacted through Building Brighter Futures, to make a choice. And students will be given first priority available seats at other schools. But they must enter that into the choice application window. So should the board vote on this plan on December 9th, the choice application period and the choice enrollment window period will be from January 5th through February 27th. It'll be very important that if families are going to make another choice, that we know what that choice is so that you can get first available priority seats. And so I really want to make sure that families know that. Just because we are giving you a reserved seat at your welcoming school, we want to honor and keep those school communities together, particularly since staff will generally be moving at the welcoming school. We want to try as best as possible to keep staff and students together. Families have a choice, and so it's really important for families to make that choice in the choice window. We cannot guarantee or give first available priority outside of that choice window, so just know that. Also, for all rising 8th grade scholars, all 8th grade students will have to make a high school selection. The other thing I wanted to clarify, for any year when we've done any major portfolio decision, when you look at what happened in 2020, there were also major portfolio decisions that were around in 2015. The choice window for high schools was in the earlier part of the calendar year, as it will be this year, January and February. For the past couple of years, we've been in November. So just know that this is consistent what we've done whenever we've had portfolio changes in our district, at least in the recent history. But all 8th graders will have to make a choice, and I'm gonna talk a little bit about some of the things we're doing to support our 8th grade scholars and families as they're making those choices. I know some families have reached out to me specifically, and I know that we wanna be able to support you as you're making those choices. So who receives special considerations for enrollment in a school? So I want to just break this out. It's the same thing I just shared on the last slide, but just be a little bit more specific on this. A student will receive special enrollment consideration, one, if they cannot attend school in their current building next year as a result of Building Brighter Futures. So they are in a school that is being recommended to end instruction at the end of this year and will need to go to a receiving school. So those students will get special consideration. They will have a reserved seat at their welcoming school. Also, students who will get special considerations for enrollment consideration, whether it is at a welcoming school or getting a priority seat or priority preference at another school, is a student that attends a neighborhood school that is becoming a specialty school. So you heard tonight from, I believe, the chapter chair at Tremont. Tremont is a specialty school that is recommended to be moved into a neighborhood school. So in that case, the students who are at that neighborhood school of Waverly, they would fit in that example because a specialty school is moving into their school, and they are not, that school will no longer be a neighborhood school. And so those families, if eligible, may choose to stay or choose the Montessori model. We're not forced placing that Montessori model on them, but they have special consideration whether to get that reserved seat at their welcoming school, which in the recommendation is Gallagher, or any other school of their choice. Special enrollment considerations are a CMSD student who will receive a reserved seat in their identified welcoming school. Also, those students who will receive first priority for available seats in all other schools during the choice window. And as I mentioned before, you must submit an application during the choice window period, prior to the deadline, and that deadline is February 27th. So it's really important. And should the board vote on this plan in December, a big push and a big part of our work will be really ensuring that families make a choice. It also helps us, I'm going to talk about special education in a moment, but without knowing the students and which choices they're going to be and also the staffing, we can't exactly know all of the specification for some classes. In general, we can let you, we know where some classes will be, but in some cases we won't know until families make a choice and also until we have the staffing. So it's going to be very, very important for all students because we do care for all students. I know that there was that rallying cry, of which I agree of, that all of our students are precious commodities, and especially those that learn differently. We want to be able to support our students in the best way to maximize their potential and their brightness. And so we are very committed to really ensuring that all of our students have that opportunity. So it's very important that all students make that choice so that we can determine the classrooms, the space needs, as well as the staffing needs. A little bit about the choice process. So this is based on the recommendation should the board vote on Building Brighter Futures next week. Our team is prepared in December to do college and career pathway fairs for students in 8th through 11th grade, specifically even focusing on our 8th grade scholars so that they understand their options for high school next year and some of those pathways. And I'm going to talk about high schools in a moment. I heard some of the questions before around high schools. I heard the brilliant question around the criminology pathway at Glenville High School. So we want to talk about pathways and what we mean by pathway and what the state talks about with pathways. So I have some information to share about that tonight and what we're going to do moving forward. And we really want to ensure that our scholars know where those pathways are, where those programs are going to be. And the other thing we're doing during this time is for our 8th grade students are taking a inventory assessment that helps them discover their path and understand the things that they may be interested in. And they can use those results in helping them figure out what pathways may be a better suit for them when choosing a high school selection. Now in January, the school choice window application opens. We're intending to open that on January 5th. And then the school choice fairs will be taking place throughout January and February. And so we're committed to doing those fairs, and not only in our high schools, but in all of our schools, even our elementary schools. And this is a new practice for us. We have traditionally not done fairs during choice open enrollment and choice window process for elementary school students. So this is a new practice that we're doing, modeled off of some of the things we learned last year. We got great feedback from the Gallagher community when the new Gallagher opened up. And also, we got great feedback from Wilbur Wright community when we made decisions around Newton Baker. The same thing with Clark. When Clark and Walden was coming together, there were fairs where families could come in, learn about the school, find out about the programs, and those things we'll be doing in January and February to help families assist with the choice. The other thing, so the application window closes, or the application will close on February 27th. The week of March 30th is when the school choice process results will be shared with families. So just know that by the week of March 30th, that's when we'll be able to share those results. The deadline to accept your placement offer in a school will be mid-April. And then registration for new families going into CMSD will be ongoing, and we'll have more information for that for families that are not impacted for Building Brighter Future, but just coming into our system. We'll have more information as we go along. And then the school year 26-27 will begin in August. Speaking of the calendar, we do intend to bring a mock draft of what we're thinking about for the calendar next year, as well as start and end times. That is a process that needs to be approved by the board, but also there's a process that we do for calendars, and we're pushing that forward. But starting next week, we want to share where our draft thinking is, knowing that there will still be the process and period for it to sit. But we know that's going to be important for staff as they're considering options for where they will want to work, and also for families in terms of where their child will attend school. These are just all the different resources we're planning to support our families with. Every school will have choice navigators. Choice navigators will help support families knowing their options and choices and understanding those options and choices. There will also be choice guides to help families consider that. I also want to talk about the School Finder online tool that will be on the website. Shout out for the new website. I see several members of our external affairs and comms team. I know when I was searching just for information over the break, I got a chance to see that our new website is live. But there are links right at the top around Building Brighter Futures that links you to it. I think we're going to have information on the landing page right on the website where you can go straight to the School Finder tool as well as the choice enrollment period. So this is all to support our families, to streamline information and give you information with more clarity. We already talked about those school welcoming events and then also the pathway fairs. All right, some other questions. So questions around special education, multilingual, and pre-K. So I want to go a little bit more specifically into some of these questions. So the first question, how are you supporting students receiving special education service through this transition? And what commitments are you making to pre-K, multilingual learners, and students who need additional supports? I would also include gifted in this group too. When we think about students who learn differently, gifted students are in that category as well. Let me go through a few of these things. So I want to start with special education, and I hear the passion behind the question, and it's really important for us when we're thinking about where special education seats are, where the classes will be, where students will have the opportunity to attend school. I'm going to talk very high level in terms of some of the things that we're doing and what went into the model, but I do want to underscore the importance of making a choice. Should the board vote on this plan, it'll be very important for us to understand who are the students in the school, because our special education team, as they do now, needs to map every individual student to a classroom. They need to map them to a classroom. That also determines what that classroom setting is, aligned to the IEP, aligned to the service that's needed, and also what teacher designation that needs to happen. In general, there are three buckets when we think about special education where students are given instruction in. There's the regular education classroom, and this is to the best extent possible when we're talking about the least restrictive environment. We want to ensure that all of our students have access to Tier 1 instruction with some supports. And so to the best extent possible, this is where we really want to ensure that students are being leveraged and have the opportunity to receive special education supports, but in a general education setting. There are some students who need small group resource room setting and pull out. And then there are other cases, depending on what's in the IEP or depending what the disability is, a single classroom environment is really important, that there are separate needs, that there's separate special specifications. As is now, depending on wherever a student is on the continuum, there are some schools that have these offerings and there are some that do not. I will let you know, in all of our schools, the regular education setting with supports and accommodations of push-in supports, that's in all of our schools. It will continue to be in all of our schools. And also some resource pullout is also in all of our schools and will continue to be in all of our schools. Some of the special single classroom settings. That is where we do need to map the individual student and the staff to know where that space is. I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the things we'll be doing and the information we'll be giving to families in the coming months to ensure that we can best help families make those choices and also best determine the setting. And a student's IEP determines that setting, that least restrictive environment setting per policy. So enduring commitments, as I mentioned before, for all students with special education needs, CMSD will continue to provide the inclusive learner-centered services and those supports. There will be in all CMSD schools. I just shared this in the least restrictive environment. This will offer, through Building Brighter Futures, this will mean all of our students, no matter how they learn, will have access to the rich, robust opportunities that Building Brighter Futures will offer. Those opportunities to have enhanced enrichment courses, the college and career settings that we're giving to all of our high school students, as well as the enrichment courses in our K-8s, and then also the access to extracurricular activities and expansion to those opportunities that we do not have now. Now, for students who are served in a single classroom, a self-contained special education classroom, all single classroom types will continue to be offered in multiple locations across all regions, as is now. This is exactly how it is now, and it's a matter of making sure that we map the student based on their IEP and the staff, as well as the classroom setting in terms of the building of where those opportunities are. And we want, one of the things we found through Building Brighter Futures, because of the opportunities and the types of classrooms that we're opening up, we're projecting more stability for our students in elementary schools to actually continue services. We have some schools now that, based on the student's IEP, they may have to actually switch schools based on their current setting, because as they progress through their education or their age, that is no longer offered. One of the things we're looking at and through our modeling is to provide that more stability and continuity for a student to stay at a school, kindergarten through 8th grade, depending on their special education designation. So just know that these are some of the things we're looking at, but it is a very individualized approach. It is based on the student, it is based on their IEP, and also where the student is going to choose to go to school. I've shared some of these already in terms of our commitments. Moving classrooms from transitioning schools to welcoming schools where space allows, and also where the student enrollment meets the classroom specification needs, meets the staffing. That is our top commitment. Creating continuums by single special education classrooms where, when possible, limiting the number of transition students we'll need to make in elementary. I just shared about this. And then also we're proactively communicating. So one of the things we're planning on as of now, should the board vote on this plan, starting in December, we want to give communication out to families as well as staff, as well as doing sessions for families to explain not only the services that we currently offer, but how those services will continue through Building Brighter Futures. We want to do that through our special education team, as well as our student support division under academics, to provide families with that information. That will start in December and continue on post the holiday break. So just know that those are district commitments. Placement and enrollment support, as we do now, we want to be able to help families explore the best options possible given them and given where their students' needs are, and we want to continue to provide that support. The navigation supports that we're doing for all students will also provide that individualized supports. And then also siblings. We do, in part of our enrollment process, we have a sibling preference to help siblings stay together where possible. And so those are all different things that our enrollment team is ready to set families up with and giving that individualized support. But once again, that's a very individualized basis and based on families' needs. And your choice navigator, as well as the enrollment team, is ready to support should the board vote on this plan in December. For multilingual students, it's the same thing. I will put multilingual and gifted students in the same vein, we don't have a slide for our gifted students, but students who are marked as gifted, it's the same, where there are classes, there are programs that we have in certain schools to provide this support. But for our multilingual learners, we'll continue to have access to specialized language development support at all of our schools, while also receiving support in mastering academic content. And so we already have a specialized support through a multilingual department in academics to provide that support. And then also through Building Brighter Futures, all of our students will have the benefit, no matter their designation, how they learn, to the benefits of Building Brighter Futures that will happen across all of our schools. Pre-K offerings. We are committed to having high quality pre-K. This is something we heard in the community meetings that we did not only in the spring, but through the fall, meeting with Pre-for-CLIA multiple times, the importance of pre-K. And we're committed to having high quality pre-K. Actually, CMSD offers some of the highest quality pre-K seats in the entire city, and we're committed to continuing to do that. And through Building Brighter Futures, 96% of our K-8 schools will offer pre-K. That will be up from 93% this year, and only 2 elementary schools will not offer pre-K. So I know there was a question of, I think once again it was Tremont, like where are the pre-K classes going, special education classes? Once again, know that the commitment for us to continue those services and also the enrollment will help us to determine exactly the number and specification of classrooms. But I believe specifically for the Tremont community, those are not changing. So student supports, and this is something we've shared at a very high level before in terms of our commitment through Building Brighter Futures, how we're supporting every school community. Every school community will continue to have a full-time nurse at every single school. We'll continue to have full-time guidance counselors at all of our high schools. Continued access to speech and language pathologists, our occupational therapists and physical therapists, as well as school psychologists. And then also our 5 Cs that will continue to be supported at every single school. So this is our commitment to student supports. Something that is not on here, but I know we've talked about before. We had a couple of slides last board meeting on was safety. Of course, school resource and safety and security officers at every single school, and in many cases, increased school resource officers to be on the more, I would say, reactive side, but all of these supports are to help on the proactive side, as well as our human-aware support to help with social-emotional learning. All right, so building space, and I think there was even a question tonight of John Marshall. We heard that even during some of the community meetings, say, how does this work? As a matter of fact, I think the person who spoke for John Marshall tonight, I've seen at some of the community meetings, so appreciate some of the feedback that we continue to hear as we consider some of the things in the recommendation. So there's a question around sometimes if you just are adding up the numbers, looking at the spaces and just saying, how will this work? Won't the school be enrolled? Will there be space? And how are you looking at this when thinking about welcoming school buildings that were selected? So a few things I want to share. This is also a busy slide, so I will summarize and also just share with you some of the highlights. And as always, I believe this information is definitely on a board doc, so you'll have access to it. So through the work that we did with our consultants to actually study every single building, the space needs, and what those space needs need to be for the type of classroom it is. When a building is built, you have a certain type of planning capacity to know, is it a science lab? Is it a music classroom? Is this a multi-purpose room that could be used for many different things? All buildings have that designation, and when we're looking at the enrollment, we're looking at the types of programs we want to offer in it, not only currently, but in the future state, and we map the student count number to that building footprint plan. One thing that's not on this slide, but I want to share, a building, even if at 100% or even going over 100% capacity, does not mean that classrooms are full. It does not mean that every single classroom is used. It is our consultants have shared that it is common in some districts that schools that have a healthy enrollment that can sustain programming over time actually goes over 100% capacity. None of our buildings at this point are over 100% capacity, and we're trying to stay in that sweet spot, upward of 85 and then 95, upward of that range. So just know that that keeps it's a healthy enrollment, and also over time, that helps you maintain the enrollment to maintain the programs. Because if the enrollment drops, you won't be able to maintain the program, and you may have to look at some of the decisions we're making with this recommendation. I also want to make note that a building's projected enrollment is different from the end of year enrollment. So the numbers that were in the school data snapshot, the numbers that were in each of these individual decks that are posted on the website, that is the end of school year enrollment as reported by the state, the Department of Education and Workforce that we have at the end of the year. And they take pretty much an average of what that enrollment was at any given point in time. I know in some cases, there are schools, I know I've heard it as I was doing community meetings, where they're saying our enrollment's actually higher than that now. Enrollment's a relative data point, it changes. There are times when you're looking and your enrollment is actually lower than what it was shown on that. Just knowing that end of year data snapshot is something we use so it was consistent. If you're going into Power School at any given point in time, if we were using those numbers, it would change every day. So that is not a very wise way for us to actually make projection numbers. We want things that we can actually compare it to and actually use data over time to compare enrollment trends and also looking at the capacity needs. We also have taken into account attrition that happens, that not all students may choose those school programs. We've even heard some families saying, hey, I need a different choice. I may make a different choice. That happens every year, given a year. So you're taking all those numbers and taking that into account when actually thinking what the projected enrollment will be in a building. The other thing I'll say is some schools will need to rethink space. I've been in a lot of our elementary schools, and it's great because the enrollment is so small in some cases that a lot of our partners have rooms in those buildings. And we love when partners can have rooms and support, but our obligation is to our students and our families first, and making sure that our scholars have a strong place where they can be educated, a place that is of good quality, and they can house those high quality programs we're putting into it. So that's our top priority, which are our scholars, and not necessarily all the community partners they may be in. We want to still partner with them, but we may need to rethink spaces. Or, I was a school leader before and a teacher. There are some schools that have a room where your partners are in, and they could all sit there or have desk space. So we have to rethink space. You may not have a whole room or a whole suite of rooms, or in some cases, a whole floor to have do your programming. We need to make sure that we're filling our buildings with our scholars and the educational programming that we're providing for them. This is just a reminder of the things that went into place, and I know that there were questions around what we were doing in the community meeting, but it is affirming when actually even through the public comment tonight, many people were able to reiterate the primary data points we were looking at. And so that shows a community that is actually leaning in, community that understands what went into this process. And so knowing that these were the primary data points, but there were so many other things that we considered, such as student outcomes, looking at those retention rates, the historic trends, transportation, safety. These were all the different things that went into figuring out which buildings would be paired and which buildings would be good candidates through the Building Brighter Futures recommendation. And it's always difficult, like as I was listening to so many of our families tonight coming from communities, school communities, or staff members coming from school communities, you hear the passion, and we know that great things are happening in our schools across the board. We know that. And the common theme you will often hear is, I understand you have to do this, but not my school. And so all I say is I understand that that is really difficult as we are all weathering, thinking through change. And I don't think I heard many comments that acknowledge that change must happen. So there are going to be school communities that are impacted by some type of change. And so it's just a level setting. It's not easy. Change is never easy. But if I had to, as the person sitting and listening through this feedback and providing the recommendation on behalf of the district to our board, I hear that through line of, we know change needs to happen, just not my school. And if we honor that for every single school, no change would happen. All right, so high schools. This is something I know we've been hearing a lot from families. I know I've been having several meetings with different partners, meetings with students. And one thing I will acknowledge, just as I heard tonight, is a lot of students, as I've talked to students, there's some students that are excited about some of the opportunities, but they ask a lot of questions around implementation, and you heard that tonight. And so, again, I appreciate when we're getting to the space of how do we implement this? How do we make this work? How do we make class size work? Not class size, class rank work. I appreciate those types of questions, and those are all the questions we need to lean in on. I do want to share some of the planning, because we do have a plan as we're thinking through all of this. And for some of this work, we do want to actually get to a point of understanding what the board is directing us to in terms of what the final plan will be, so we can get to the implementation. Some of these things you don't want to just determine overnight. You really want to work with the community, lean in. You want to look at academic patterns and trends so that you can actually have and deliver on the promise of building brighter futures. So you don't want things to happen overnight. We do really want to make sure we plan. And one of the things that we looked at when looking at this implementation window was to provide a recommendation by this time so that should the board vote on this by December, we have a semester to plan. And we want to give ourselves to that. Our scholars deserve that. Our educators deserve that. So just know that we're looking at the student experience at every single stage. Building Brighter Futures is a plan that is thinking about what is the student experience at every single stage. I know I was at one family meeting and there was this question around, well, we hear a lot about high schools, but what about our kids? Our kids aren't going to be in high school yet. Well, I will say your kids will be in high school at some point, and we should be thinking about what that brighter future will be for them. But also, we do need to be thinking about what the brighter future needs to be for our elementary school students. So I want to share a few things, knowing that Building Brighter Futures provides expanded opportunities, not only for students starting in pre-K, but even in the elementary space to those enrichment courses, and in some cases, the ability to take some courses, learning how to play an instrument, which you could start learning in 4th or 5th grade. And then also just some of the expanded extracurricular activities, such as some of the sports and some of the other clubs. Those are expanded opportunities we'll be able to provide with the enrollment at scale. The middle school experience is pivotal. Right now, I was at a family meeting where the class size for 8th grade, I think it's between 13 and 15. How can you have a true middle school experience with students switching classes when you don't have enough students to differentiate the program? We need our students to have a true middle school experience. We could do that without creating middle schools. And I have heard feedback of like, why don't you do grade configuration? Why don't you have middle schools? Our scholars deserve a true middle school experience. And with that, one, you need scheduling, which our academics team is already looking at. How can we build in a true middle school schedule in our elementary schools so that students can have access to band? If they qualify for Algebra 1, they could do that. The CTE program, now that the state is asking us to have in all of our middle schools, we can only do that with the scheduling and the enrollment at scale. And our scholars deserve that middle school experience so that they're prepared for high school. And finally, Building Brighter Futures is a plan that doubles down on the high school experience. Currently, right now, we do not offer college and career readiness at scale. We don't offer complete pathways. We're calling things pathways that are not complete pathways. In a moment, I'm going to show you what the state defines as a pathway and why our kids deserve to have that experience. This is our moment to deliver on that promise for our scholars. I know that not everything will be easy, but it is our moment to deliver on that promise, and our kids deserve it, they need it, and we need to give that to them right now. So a few things that are driving this moment. There's a perfect segue. There are some different things that the state is looking at that they didn't once look at. So I know that there are questions of, well, we designed this high school to be this way, and we call it a pathway, even though it's not a state-recognized pathway where students are not actually graduating with that credential. Hence, currently on our report card, 36% of students were college, career, workforce, and military ready. 36%. And in some of our highest performing schools, that didn't break even 50%. So we have the opportunity to ensure that our scholars are meeting this demand. That was not a measure that was around years ago. And so no one is saying what we've done was wrong, but the standard has changed. We have to level up. And to meet that standard and to meet that change, it's a moment that demands action. And so I just really want to reiterate, some of the things in some of our schools that we're calling pathways are not pathways according to the state. The students aren't graduating from that pathway, and they're not graduating with a credential to make them college, career, workforce, and military ready. And also, this is the moment that demands action given our financial resources and our constraints. And so given the reality to offer scholars more while also looking at our financial constraints, this is a necessary time for us to look at our high school strategy. Let's talk about the ways to demonstrate college, career, workforce, and military readiness. One of my, well, I would say all of my board meetings are favorite meetings. But one of my favorite meetings, seriously, was in the spring when Dr. Florence's team really broke down the college, career, workforce, and military readiness. And I don't know what the experience was for people who were watching it, but for those who were here, we were actually looking at student profiles and what we currently offer. It was a very powerful moment. And whenever we can look at what we call DILOs, or days in the life of, and look at the strategy we're doing through the lens of a scholar and the pathway a scholar will be taking, it's very powerful. But one of the things Dr. Florence shared in that presentation is in the new, the way the state is looking at college, career, workforce, and military ready, there are 11 ways or 14? There are 11 ways to demonstrate that students are college, career, workforce, and military ready. And for us to change that 36%, students only need to show one way to demonstrate that. One way, and we're only getting at 36%. But we haven't been intentional. It's no one's fault. We as a district have not set up our schools and our school leaders to deliver on this promise. We're not even offering the programs in schools. This is our moment to do this. There are a couple of things I want to share here that will help people understand what a college pathway is and a career pathway. And I will also acknowledge it will take us some time to get there. I know that people are asking the question, how? How do you make this work when you're going to be offering all these pathways starting next year? How can all kids choose all these programs? We don't think all the kids are going to be changing programs in a given year. Some of these programs will take us to build over time, but they will have opportunity to expand at courses. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about that, walking you through a schedule and how scheduling and how we do time and also do the master schedule matters in ensuring that all students can be college, career, workforce, and military ready. But I want to show college pathways. I'm going to talk a little bit about career pathways. It's on this slide. Students can show college readiness through standardized tests. And actually tonight, we're looking at some data on how our students actually test and show college readiness. We have work to do, family, CMSD family, we have work to do. Even on some of our highest performing campuses, 6% of students are demonstrating college and career readiness based on how they're testing. We have work to do. And I'm grateful for the board of charging us for looking at rigorous goals, but that is the brighter future we want. We want our kids to have all the experiences, but 6%, as a district, we're at 3%. 3%, we got work to do. So one way is through college career readiness. Honors diplomas. One of the things through Building Brighter Futures is the opportunity at every high school for a student to earn an honors diploma. They can't do that now. They can't do it in every single high school. We have that opportunity. Also, college courses. Now, you could take CCP, those are college career prep courses, and you need 12 credits of that, passing that. Now, in some cases, students can go to Tri-C, do high tech, that is remaining, but you have to go to Tri-C. We want the opportunity for students to take it at their school. The other way is through AP and IB. Now, IB will not be offered in every school. We will have IB through this recommendation, on one campus. But through AP, we do want to offer AP at all of our high schools, or some ways to demonstrate, whether it's through dual enrollment through the college career courses or through AP. But to get AP credit and to earn a college pathway, according to the state, you need to take 3 AP classes and get a 3 or above on the exam. I don't know about you. I took AP classes in high school. AP is very challenging. And to get a 3 or above is very challenging, not only for our kids, for all kids. I've been a big proponent of dual enrollment or college-ready courses because when students are being taught that class by a certified teacher that can actually teach it, all they need to do is pass the course and they can get college credit for a university that accepts it. But for AP, you not only need to take the course, pass it, but pass the test with a 3 or above. That's a steep road to climb. So I want to name that because a lot of people are saying, we have college pathways. Well, no, we don't. We don't offer this in all of our schools. Not our schools can, our schools can't even deliver on this. And though we'll have offerings next year, it's going to take us time to build there. Not only from the offerings we have, it takes training we have to give our teachers, And it takes building we have to do for our scholars to get there. And some of the data I'll be sharing and the goals and guardrails will be a part of that. Let's switch focus to career pathways, because that's the other thing. People will say, we have a career pathway. Well, no, you don't. According to the state, in a pathway, you need 4 courses aligned to a state-approved pathway. We don't have all those state-approved pathways in our schools, and we definitely don't have 4 courses. I was at, shout out to the remote high school. I got a chance to meet with the remote high school staff, and I'm still, that was a really great meeting, and I love forward-thinking plans. But there was a question around one of our pathways are missing, and I had to share, you may offer the course, it's not a full pathway. If students can't take 4 classes, and not only just 4 classes, you take 4 classes and I think pass at least 3 web exams that go along with that with a qualifying score. So it's a steep road. We presented data on our WebEx exams, and I don't remember what exactly that number is off the top of my head. It wasn't good. So we have work to do there. And we are also not offering 4 courses in every single pathway. So I share this with passion because I want the community to understand, and I know we could do a better job of explaining the types of things we're looking at. It's not being dismissive of where we are right now. We've done great work as a system. Proud of our system, proud of our scholars, proud of every single one of our schools for the work we've done to build it. And we have work to do. When we have 3% of students that are college and career ready, we have work to do. And we should all be looking at ourselves to figure out, why is that? Why are only 3% of students right now college and career ready? And I think last year we got up to 7%. That's not good. So we have work to do. And I believe our goal is at 10%. But I would believe most of us would say we would want to be in a district where the majority of our students are prepared. All right. A couple of things moving forward on the high school experience. So we understand building brighter futures will be a transition for current 11th and 12th graders. Because current 11th and 12th graders, I heard the young lady who is at Campus International, and she's a 12th grader. She's like, I've worked really hard. I have my class rank. How does this look like? Know that we're hearing those questions on class rank. We don't have a response for you now, but those are things we're looking into. And also a part that we can also work with school community should the board vote on this to figure out what that looks like. Because I do understand that is a transition and that's something we should look into. But I also want to acknowledge our current 10th and 11th graders who will be 11th and 12th graders next year. Students who will be 11th and 12th graders next year are already on a path. We are committed to make sure you take the core courses that you need to graduate. And we also want to ensure that you have access to demonstrate your college, career, workforce, and military readiness through your current program that you're in. In some cases, there's a CTE program that you're currently in. We want to help you get across the finish line and finish out. In some cases, there's schools that don't offer college career readiness, and we will get you across. We will get you to your journey and destiny. We may not be able to get you through a completed pathway given where your journey is. So just know that for our 11th and 12th graders, our commitment is to help students finish out while also still having exposure to courses that they didn't have exposure to. And I'm going to show some schedules where you can look at. Our counselors, our transition teams, and choice navigators will be supporting students through this process. And in the coming months, we're going to continue to respond to some of those questions around implementation around here. But I do want you to know that through Building Brighter Futures, 11th and 12th graders next year, their experience may look different from what the future state of the high schools that we're planning as we get to build, particularly for our 9th graders next year and what they'll have by the time that they're seniors. I've already described this, so I just want to let you know that when we're talking about the types of experiences we want our students to graduate from, we don't just want them with a high school diploma in their hand, which most of our students, that's what they graduate with. I think we graduate a lot of students with waivers or just with a minimum requirement to graduate. They're not graduating with a seal. They're not graduating. We saw the numbers with CCWMR, so it's 36%. That's under half of our students are graduating with that credential. And they also are not graduating with an honors diploma, not the majority of our students. So our goal over time, it's not gonna happen overnight, but we have to offer the courses, is to give students a head start in college to help them with a credential. Some type of a credential that if they were in a pathway where they went through it, that they can walk out of it. I know through Building Brighter Futures, we want to offer a teaching profession program. So what does that look like when you walk away from that? And allied health, what does it look like to have your CNA when you graduate? And also skills that make you employable. So this is our goal as we're thinking about that more well-rounded high school graduate. These are some sample schedules. I won't go through all of these, but it shows you how through the way we're looking at scheduling, students can take that core content, can take some college readiness courses, and also take some classes towards a pathway. This is an example of what a multimedia pathway is, and there are multiple high schools through Building Brighter Futures that will have some type of multimedia or digital arts pathway or arts pathway. As you can see, our goal for 9th grade students through Building Brighter Futures is to ensure that all students are taking the core content area, passing their core content area. We know for 9th graders, not only do we need to work on attendance, as was demonstrated last week in our board goals presentation, but we also have to work on passage rates, which I think that may be coming up soon in terms of looking at 9th grade passage rates from this semester on the other side of the break. So we want to make sure they're passing their classes, but also giving students a freshman seminar where it can help them explore their pathway. With the expanded pathways that will be at every high school, students will now have choices to choose different pathways. And whether they want to be on a college pathway, or whether they want to be on a CTE pathway, or demonstrate different classes. I know there were questions around how will IB fit on the John Hay campus? And John Hay campus is a school that, with the recommendation, would have IB, would have the biomedical science pathway, would have a STEM pathway that's aligned to the architecture and design, and also has the early college. And students will still have to choose a pathway that they're going down, but it doesn't mean that with this schedule, students can't choose to take AP classes, or take an IB class, or take a class in a pathway, even if they don't complete that pathway. So just know that this is about expanded opportunities, but having students to choose a path that they could be CCWMR. And then we also wanted to include some of the sample extracurriculars. So this is an example of an allied health pathway, which I think we currently have at Glenville High School, and also Glenville High School, Lincoln West. There are remnants of what this could be on the John Hay campus as we need to build out what that medical pathway is, because currently right now it's not a state-approved pathway. So looking at what that actually looks like. And then manufacturing, which we have at several of our schools in terms of STEM opportunities. And then this is what an academic honors program could look like, where students are taking IB, where they're taking AP courses, and how that can fulfill their experience and have these different opportunities. So know that these are the different things we're looking at. We won't know the exact courses that are in schools because we don't have the staffing. We can have a general idea based on where the schools are offering now, but also the school leader will help design and architect the specific courses that will be offered there. Our commitment is really ensuring that we have completed pathways on both the college side and the career side in every single high school. And this is just something that I've already underscored, but it's, as we're thinking about preparing students for high school success, the middle school experience is really pivotal. So ensuring that we have large enough elementary schools to provide that middle school experience that we need across the board in every single school is very important. High school choice is really important. We talked about that. It's called your Find Your Path assessment. That's that inventory assessment I was talking about earlier, where all of our 8th graders right now either have taken it or will take it, where they're finding out what their interests are. I think I remember at one of our board goal presentations, Mr. Dean talking about this work and how this is really important for us understanding students' interests and matching them with their pathway and their careers. The high school choice will help students with that. Our high school choice fairs will help with that. And then also really making sure 9th grade is a very strong year. Our data currently shows that 9th grade is a very challenging year for our scholars. We lose a lot of students in 9th grade. They're not coming to school. The on-track rates are abysmal. And for those that make it through 9th grade, they're getting to 10th grade, and that's where it's a starting point. We need to change that. And a big part of that is ensuring that they're prepared. Many of our students, if you're going from a single classroom, self-contained elementary school and being thrown into a high school, that is not the experience we really want to ensure that scholars have. So a big part of Building Brighter Futures is ensuring that middle school experience in the elementary setting so that we can prepare students for high school. And I know there were other questions that came up tonight. We're tracking those, and we'll take those and give board members information. But that's all on Building Brighter right now.
Thank you, Dr. Morgan. Dr. Sridhar?
Thank you, Chair Ellicott. Thank you, Dr. Morgan, for your comprehensive presentation that addressed many of the questions that came up at the last meeting and also during public comment. I have two questions. one that is that's academics focused, and the other one more school culture focused. The academics question, I mean, thank you for your presentation about the special ed programs. My question is about, and you said that we would, the district would be getting to a mode of communicating with families and parents about what options they would have. I would encourage the district to invest the resources in making sure that those communications are as individualized and personalized as possible. One of the, at least one of the public commenters talked about form letters, and I understand the magnitude of the situation that we have, and it is certainly not possible to write individualized letters to every single child and family. However, I think that we can leverage technology and data to make sure that the communications that we send to families are specific to them. So, you outlined several challenges at being able to not, talk about where a child might be able to go next year to receive the same kind of special ed programming that they are receiving now, and based on attendance and things like that. I understand that, but we have a relatively good handle on what kinds of buildings might be possibilities and things like that. So I would encourage us to do that. And if you can actually talk to us next week about what possibilities there might be. I mean, I'm not asking for anything, but even like, some possibilities, some templates, that could be nice. Again, I don't need to, we don't need an answer today. I just wanted to put that out there. The second one, again, from a school culture perspective, and this came up in one of the public comment speakers today, and I also heard it out in the community about school rank and school recognition, especially for students who are rising seniors. When they go to a new school community, they may not have the same level of recognition. Similar to the plan that the district has for transportation that has a 2-year window, I would encourage the district to have a plan just for next year for rising seniors who will be in a new school community to have some form of class rank recognition that can acknowledge the academic progress that they made in their old schools, so that we're not losing that progress.
Dr. Morgan, what is the plan for rising seniors around class rank? How has your team thought about it?
It's one of the things we're hearing that question and figuring out what is going to be best. One of the things we've heard from this is how do we acknowledge where students are, or acknowledging or recognizing where they are, and there are many different things you could do with that in terms of when the students graduate in 2027, having multiple students recognized based on where their old rank was versus what their current rank is. It's going to be very specific to the school community. Class rank is also something that is, there's a actual approval process at the state level. So there will be an official class rank, but I also understand the spirit and the acknowledgement behind working so hard and now being in a blended community, and there's many different ways we could do that. And so this is also one of those things we do really want to hear from the communities and figure out what the best pathway is. There is a way that will be done per the state that there will need to be an official way, but there's also many different ways to figure out how that is blended, how that's acknowledged, how that's recognized in a graduation ceremony. So those are things we'll look at, and I think it's great feedback that we're getting that at this point.
Mr. Briggs?
Dr. Morgan, would you address the concern expressed about the Glenville High School criminal justice program and the elimination of that? Is that, I must have missed that.
Yeah, so I can bring more information specifically on that. What I can share, and I'll chime, have anyone from academics that if they want to add anything to sharing with this. When we looked at what the different pathways are, just as I shared there are some schools that did not have completed pathways, and I believe with that one, there were 7 students enrolled. 7 students enrolled in the current program. Dr. Florence, yeah, phoning a friend.
Juniors and seniors right now in the program currently. 7 juniors and seniors.
Yeah.
Total.
So yeah, combined 7 students, juniors and seniors. So when we're thinking about what the future of it, what it actually looks like. And I also believe that's one where there's not a full completed pathway there. It's just offerings for it there. So there was an idea of really thinking about feasibility and also numbers when doing that. But that's something I wrote down in the comment here. We're going to explore and take some of those questions into consideration, and we'll share more about
Thank you.
Mr. Billups.
Thank you, Chair Ellicott. Dr. Morgan, thank you for this evening's presentation. I just have a couple questions kind of around the transition potentially if the board was to vote for the changes. My first question is around students, and I just from being in the community for as long as I have, my mind almost instantly goes to the parents who they're not going to make the deadlines. They're for whatever reason it may be, are going to miss some of these deadlines and the portal from January to February, and we're going to look up, it's going to be April, and their kid is going to be left in limbo. Will there be opportunity for students to, I guess my question becomes, will a student automatically be put into a space at their new school?
Great question. So I want to acknowledge even just how much lift we know it will take to communicate with families. It is very hard right now in terms of communicating with families. And I never take that lightly in terms of when we don't hear from families or if they're meetings and they don't show up, that our parents don't care. I know that our parents care a lot and care for their kid as we care for them, and of course, even more. And so we know that it's going to be really important that we intensify our support in terms of what we're doing for families. It is very hard now. Even when we do multiple forms of communication. Today was we used an inclement weather day, which is never in the life of a district leader or anyone on leadership teams is not an easy day. It's a very early morning day, late night day, trying to figure out calls. And then it's always trying to figure out what is the best mode of communication. And even with that, whether you're hitting socials, whether you're doing IVRs, whether in some cases when you have to send letters home or emails home, there are some families that we miss. So there are 2 things that we're doing through this plan that we knew we couldn't just do the regular mode of communications, which all of those modes of communications will be ways we'll continue to communicate. We know our website we're continuing to update. But having the transition teams at schools, and I know there's still work we have to do to really clarify what the roles of the transition teams and the support, so we're working to do that. But the spirit behind this is we must intensify our supports because every family needs to understand their options. They need to understand what's taking place with this. We need to understand those classrooms. You hear it tonight, even with some of the special education classrooms, transportation supports. That is really important, and we know that not all of that can just be funneled to a couple of people at central office. We really want to make sure it is a differentiated grassroots approach where we're giving families the supports that they need. And so that's the idea behind the transition teams. Also having the navigators at the schools. Every school being assigned a navigator to really help families navigate through this process. We're going to be tracking also our families making choices, doing follow-up calls. So these are different things we're doubling down our supports on. And even through Building Brighter, there are ways we've doubled down our supports when thinking about like Let's Talk and some of the other avenues that we've been doing to really increase our supports. And even with that, we want to be even more responsive because as we look at that, we know that there are people we need to communicate and reach. So those are things we're looking into. Your other question was just what happens with families that do not make a choice. There is the way we've looked at this, there is room at the welcoming school that is where families will, I guess, default if they do not make a choice. However, and I'm saying this to all of our communities, it is very important to make a choice during this time for a couple of reasons. The most important thing when we think about on the other side, I know there's been questions about staffing. In order for us to figure out the program and figuring out our staff in our buildings, we need to know the enrollment. The projected enrollment determines the budget and determines the staffing at every single school. If there is an over-assumption that students show up and they don't show up, everyone knows what that process looks like now in terms of fall adjustment. If those students don't show up because families didn't make a choice or we assumed it, that impacts the staffing, and it impacts it at a time when schools already start. We want to help determine the staffing as true as possible based on where we are now. So it's going to be really important that families make a choice. And we'll help make that really easy. If there are families that are saying, hey, I want to stay put, families that are staying put in their building and don't have to do anything, they will not have to do anything. But if they're at a transitioning school and they want to attend their welcoming school, if they just want to attend their welcoming school, we'll make that process really easy. But we do want to hear from you in that time. But do know that if they don't, it'll default.
Thank you, Dr. Morgan.
Ms. Peak?
Yes, just piggybacking off of that a little bit, I wanted you to provide a little bit more details and examples of this type of staff development that will take place to make sure our career pathways, the teachers and the staff and all the people involved are prepared to deliver that.
Great question. There are a few things we're looking into, some of it which we're going to present and I see some members of the team coming up, but we're also about to present on college readiness, and we're going to talk about some of the professional development. But I'll turn it over to Dr. Florence and Mr. Dean. They may want to share about some of the things you guys are already doing, both on the college front or that we need to do, thinking about AP training and some of the other specialized areas, as well as the area we're doing on career pathways.
So you all saw the pathways map a few weeks ago, and so many of the pathways at our schools are pathways that have been in place and not complete pathways, as Dr. Morgan presented. And so for many schools, pathways are not new. The pathways they have will not be new. We will just be ensuring they have a complete pathway. So we do have schools that will have brand new pathways that we're working to train principals on first to ensure that they are aware of what pathways are being offered, the courses that will be taken, the credentials that will be available to kids. And the college and career pathway fair that's coming up in just a few weeks will be used to help inform students about the new pathways, help them understand what's being offered at high schools, and help them to make an informed choice as they move forward around choosing their high school. We are working to plan the PD that will happen in the spring for our teachers, and so there will be, we have started work with our talent team to ensure that we have the right teachers in the right place as far as their certifications go, but then we are building out a PD plan to ensure that they are prepared to walk into the new school year to teach the new pathways that are available to them.
Dr. Florence spelled everything out. That is the goal, is to make sure that the people that we currently have in place, the staff right now, is to make sure that they go to
Mr. Dean, it's hard to hear you. Could you move closer to the microphone, or if there's a way we can increase the volume?
Testing. Is that good? Okay, just reiterated what Dr. Florence said. It was just making sure that our staff have the appropriate training. So we are working with our CTE team closely to ensure that they are licensed in those areas to make sure that when we do offer those pathways in 26-27, that they go smoothly.
Will that include technology like AI and some new opportunities for teaching?
So there are some several ways in which we're utilizing technology now. Some of our platforms utilize AI. I think what's really important, as you guys have charged us with, is really thinking about our board goals and our aligned pathways and the college and career ready areas that are aligned with our pathways. But where we can, we will utilize upgraded technology to if it's aligned with our board goals as well. The other thing I will also mention, it was harder to hear, so Dr. Florence, if you shared this, just look and say, I already shared this. But one of the things we're going to be looking at and we're presenting with the calendar is more space for professional development for staff at the beginning of the year. It's really important for us, for school teams, to be together to navigate some of the transition, and also for us to think about some of the professional development we need to give to our staff as well.
Thank you.
Dr. Morgan, I wanted to address first, thank you for the thorough presentation about the special education plans. I know that most people who commented have left, but hopefully they'll tune in. When you're thinking about placement, do you anticipate also that families will be in a location that is reasonable for them in terms of distance?
Those are all the things we take into consideration. Of course, where possible, we want the students to be able to travel with their school community. As is now, as we're modeling this out, every region will have all of the continuum of supports and services within that region. And so that helps families choose whether that is they're choosing a school that is currently near the region where they are at, they can stay in that region, or if they travel now and they want to actually be at a school closer to where their home is, they'll have that opportunity and option. Those are all the different things we'll explore and explain a little bit more in our parent meetings. Dr. Sridhar, I hear your push on making it individualized. That's already something that's been top of mind for our team. It's like, how can we personalize this as much as possible, but then knowing part of the reason people are asking why is it not just up on the slide, it is a very individualized process, and we have to take this student by student. It's literally mapping the individual students to a classroom, and so it starts with a choice, but also we need to make sure families understand their options.
Thank you. And then I just want to remind, I understand the anxiety and the concerns and the worries, and especially from folks that we heard from tonight about how their students, their children will be supported. But I also want to just underscore, Dr. Morgan, for months now, perhaps much longer, I've pushed you and your team to make sure that when you bring a recommendation that you vetted all of the models that you need to vet, and that you do scenario planning around transportation, around special education, so that you're not figuring it out after the recommendation, and understanding that folks want to understand how it'll look, but the recommendation has been brought to the board with those things incorporated into it, because we cannot afford for you to figure it out after the recommendation, right? The recommendation has to ensure that it meets all of the needs that implementation will require. So just a reminder to folks around that. The intention is for the recommendation to be as fully vetted by Dr. Morgan's team for proper implementation before being presented publicly, and as well for it to now incorporate this feedback, not only feedback around potentially changes, but as you've shared, feedback around what we need to communicate more about and more clearly as we move forward. So thank you for being attentive to that. Any other questions about the Building Brighter Futures recommendation? All right, the board will now hold its monitoring of goals and guardrails, and Dr. Morgan, back over to you for that.
Thank you, Chair Ellicott. This is another great segue when thinking about building brighter futures, because now we're diving into college readiness. And so some of the things I will sound like a little bit like a broken record when thinking about where we want to be, but there's a reality of where we currently are. In many of the strategies, we haven't started. We're just emerging some of those strategies, so it's going to take time. And when we think about where we are as a district right now, we are not where we need to be. We're far from it. And even when we think about the progress that is made, is drops in the bucket in terms of what we need to be delivering on for our scholars. And so this is really important. This is why we do this work. Not that all kids will go to college, but we know that if kids are not college ready, they won't be lucrative in careers. They're not going to be productive citizens. And so college readiness is not just are they going to college, it's really about the rigor of the instruction that they're receiving, no matter their accommodation or no matter the way they learn. We need to have a rigorous curriculum in all of our schools. And so I just really want to, I know that this board has charged us with that, and I'm reiterating that to our community because that's what we must deliver on for our scholars. All right, so the college readiness goal, this is goal 3. And the overall goal is that the percent of four-year graduation cohort, so in the four-year graduation cohort will meet at least one college ready indicator, which is either ACT, SAT college ready, so that means that they're testing high enough on the ACT or SAT to be demonstrated as college ready, not just taking the exam, but we first need to make sure they take the exam. That's a big start. Taking an honors diploma, of which we know through Building Brighter Futures, we want to make sure every high school has the ability to earn a high honors diploma. Being AP or IB college ready, which we talked about tonight, 12 plus college credits, and that will increase from where it is today at 8.2% in August of 2024 to 25% by August of 2030. So I want to pause for a moment because everything we just talked about, particularly about college and career readiness, when we even think about what this goal is delivering on, in 5 years, it will only be for a quarter of our students. And many of our schools don't even offer the programs. So this is why building brighter futures is really important. I know most people know that. I heard that tonight. A lot of the questions were around implementation, but I don't want us to lose track of what we must do for our scholars. And for us to say status quo is okay, I personally, that strikes a chord with me, because we can all be doing more for our scholars, and we really want to ensure that. Now, the interim goal, or the CEO measure that we look at, is increase the percent of first and second year high schoolers predicted to be college ready as measured by the winter NWEA map on both ELA and math from 2024, which was a baseline of 7.5% to 10.5%. So I'll talk a little bit about what this measure means. So the NWEA MAP assessment, that is a benchmark assessment that all of our high school students take, depending on certain subject areas. I believe they take it generally in their freshman and sophomore year based on the way the courses that they take. Like, I think Algebra 1 is one, and maybe English 2, so sophomores. So it's a college readiness predictor. This is not looking at just proficiency, but it's looking at, do they test high enough to be at a level that is college ready? So NWEA defines college readiness as being able to be successful, being prepared to be successful to complete entry-level college credit courses at a post-secondary institution, and the ability to transition successfully to college. NWEA measures this readiness by correlating students' performance on their MAP growth assessments to their projected scores on a standardized test. So it's not just about meeting the standard in terms of proficiency, it's a higher measure. And students must meet both reading and math benchmarks to be considered college ready. So they must meet both indicators on the NWEA designation to be college ready, to show that they are college ready and predicted to be college ready on the SAT. The NWEA college readiness predictor, as I shared before, is a more stringent measure than proficiency on the Ohio State test. So when we're looking at proficiency, and last year we saw a lot of growth in proficiency in our high schools, particularly in Algebra 1, this measure is a much higher indicator. As I mentioned before, the proficiency measure just shows, are the students meeting state standards? Can they generally meet grade level expectations? To be college ready, this is going above and beyond that. The college readiness benchmark is measured by it's a predictor that shows 75% likelihood of achieving a C or better in their first semester of credit-bearing college courses. And so it's really important to really show that rigor. I know there are many of our students, even some of our students that have had a really strong education here in CMSD, they get to college and they feel that they're not prepared. And so us monitoring how students are actually performing on this measure on NWEA lets us know if we need to up our rigor, which our current data, which you'll see in a moment, shows that we do. A lot of this I've already reiterated. There are also ways that Building Brighter Futures will support this by ensuring we're offering the courses, which are those College Credit Plus courses, our Advanced Placement courses, IB courses, also students having access to honors courses that prepare them for these courses, providing increased access to high school courses in K-8 schools, and providing additional supports for those exams and courses. I also wanted to stop here because we heard even an anecdote. I know we've talked at many people who've watched the State of the Schools or were at the State of the Schools. You heard from Ariane, who was a student in 2024 at John Adams, and her ability to only take AP, I think, in her senior year. We heard even tonight a student at one of our IB schools that said honors courses weren't even offered to her until junior and senior year. And so even within our system, and she was comparing that to schools that they'll be merging with that are in the recommendation that have had access to honors and AP courses starting in 9th grade, it just shows our commitment that we need to really make sure we're leveling the playing field for all of our schools, because it's not a consistent measure and a consistent bar that's held across all of our schools. All right, so this is our journey of where we've been. As we look at this data, I want us to look at it, one, with two lenses, that we have work to do. And I want to just reiterate that when we're even looking at these small jumps, and you're talking about 3% going to 7% or 4%, it's not enough. So we have work to do. The other thing I'll say is these are different cohorts every year. And up until this year, we were not doing true intentional strategies. So even if you're looking at last year where there was a bump from fall to winter, there may have been strategies happening at the classroom level that have led to that. There were not district-wide strategies that we're implementing this year. So even though we started board goals looking at last year's baseline of where we were in the winter, there's a lot we're learning this year and using the strategies that we're doing and the strategies we'll do through Building Brighter Futures over time to really measure our progress. So you can't measure these different cohorts. These are different cohorts. And even if you looked at the different cohorts and asked, well, what happened in this one year where it jumped? There was no strategy. And so we really need to look at where we are in this fall and actually see where we're growing, not only in the winter, but beyond, because there's a lot of work we have to do. So based on this data, 3.28% of our first and second year high school students who took the NWEA measure were college ready, based on that NWEA measure, 3.28. Now that's down from where it was last year, from last year's cohort. Like I said, last year's cohort, it may have been more students. They were different students. There is overlap between the 10th graders this year and the 9th graders last year, but it's only of 1.57% difference, and also 4% last year wasn't good. So we just have overall a lot of work to do to really make sure we raise this level. Fall to winter increases for the past 2 years was roughly close to about 2 percentage points. In 24-25, it went almost up to 3 percentage points. We know with a lower fall baseline, we will need to even achieve a higher winter target to even to meet our target. So there's work we have to do there. Now, I do want to share some celebrations, because there are some schools, 2 individual schools that are exceeding our goal. Our goal, the board has charged us with, is 10.5% in our the CEO measure. And Bard Early College is at 23%. So at Bard Early College, 23%. And at Cleveland Early College High School, it's at 16%. So these are 2 schools, both of them actually happen to be early colleges, where those are programs that are being taught by college professors and students are getting a level of rigor. It is being demonstrated that students are doing higher. Now there are 5 schools that are exceeding the 3.28 percentage point, but it's not by that much. So Cleveland School of the Arts is at 8%. John Hay School of Science and Medicine is at 6%. MC Squared STEM is at 7%. Davis Aerospace and Maritime is at 6%, and Rhodes Environmental, not college and career, but Rhodes Environmental is at 5%. These are schools that are exceeding our 3.28, but we all have work to do. And it's really important, and I get passionate. Tests don't say everything. Tests don't define our kids, so I'm not saying that. But when we're talking about the work we have to do to ensure kids are college and career ready, even in some of our schools that are higher performing, we're less than 10%. That constitutes some level of change. Now, math college readiness is a large barrier. You may be asking, how is that a barrier when last year you had growth in Algebra 1? I want to share again, proficiency on Algebra 1 is what I would say a minimum benchmark to show that students were proficient, meeting state standards. It's not meaning that they're college ready. So we have work to do to make sure students are college ready. And part of the work we're doing to make sure that there's Algebra 1 starting in 8th grade and also some of those advanced courses prior to reaching high school will also help us over time. This year, I know it says 2026 school year fall. That can be confusing. The school year designation is always talking about the 25-26 school year. But this fall, 13% of students were college ready in ELA, but not math. Compared to last year, where 19% were college ready in ELA, but not math. This year, 3% of our students were college ready in math, but not ELA, so 3%. So we have some work to do. We also have some subgroup gaps, as in a lot of our data with students with disabilities, as well as our English language learners. They're predicted to be college ready. Now, strategies for improvement, with the adoption of this CEO measure, where we're looking at this benchmark of NWEA, we know we have work to do, and we are starting just from this baseline of where we are this year and seeing where it grows over time. And we're going to see where we were on the winter NWEA on the other side of the break, but this is one we're going to be monitoring over time as we're looking at our board goals. There's also some things that we're learning about our overall board goals and thinking about what are some better predictors that we can be measuring on an ongoing basis to help us know if we're on track. And also, as I mentioned, building brighter futures will help this because we'll be able to offer more courses. Right now, we don't offer some of the courses that will enable students to be college ready, but all students take NWEA. So if all students are taking the NWEA or should be taking the NWEA, but they don't have access to college and career, those rigorous college courses in their high school, they're not going to score college ready on their exam. So ongoing professional development. Ms. Peak, you asked the question about professional development. We know that there's an area that we need to do for AP. You may be asking why AP. I think there was even a teacher that came to one of our board meetings that said this. The College Board does really great PD for AP teachers, but also as someone, I didn't teach AP, but I've been through College Board training. It's a very rigorous way of thinking about structuring your classroom and also teaching some of those upper level courses. So really making sure we expand that opportunity to more of our teachers and ways we can provide that opportunity. There are ways we could do that through optional PD, but then also there are ways I would love to explore where we can work with our partners to figure out how can we ensure more teachers have access to this or are ways that we could be offering this. The implementation of the high quality instructional materials. I know we sound like a broken record when we talk about the high quality instructional materials we have in every single one of our schools, but these curricula that we've put in schools, they emphasize text-dependent questions, and that's a rigorous way of students needing to go to the text to find an answer, but also respond in writing. That's a rigorous way of teaching and not just asking students recall questions. That's a very low level of Bloom's. We really want students to be able to find evidence, cite their evidence, and to be able to speak and write that. And our curriculum is grounded in that. The same thing with the cognitively demanding math tasks, and we heard that from our group that presented on math. These are things that our curriculum is based on. And then the data-driven instructional protocols that are taking place in our schools help school teams dive into this data and figure out real time what we can be doing to really meet the needs of our scholars. Some things that are working: the increased use of high-quality instructional materials, both for ELA and math in 9 through 12. We introduced a college readiness walkthrough tool. I know next week when we're presenting on this data, we'll talk a little bit more about that data and the things that we're using. But there is some evidence of more schools utilizing that. This is our first year doing that. And that could be a way to actually help schools cite if they have rigorous instruction taking place in their high school. And then increase instructor and student use to the AP Classroom platform. I know next week there's also some data that we'll talk about in terms of that AP Classroom platform. What's not working, we've talked about the inconsistent use of the higher order skills that are in our curriculum. We may be using the curriculum, but how do we really get to that higher level tasks that the curriculum demands so that students are being stretched in their thinking? I remember even a student, when we switched the new ELA curriculum, said, it's so much, there's so much in this curriculum, how can we get it done? And that shows the demands and the cognitive task that it's asking. We do know that our curriculum is really rigorous, and there are ways we can continue to really support our teachers in using that and simplifying it, but it is rigorous, and we really want to make sure our teachers, as well as our school leaders, are supporting our teachers and using all elements of that curriculum. Also making sure that there are we have multiple curricula that are being used for AP courses, ways that we may think about how that may be streamlined, figuring out what's working. And then also, this is due to our first year of implementation, there may be some data and things that we learn over time. We've talked about why gaps exist in student groups, particularly thinking about that Tier 1 instruction, but then also the supports that help students who learn differently, that we can be providing students to actually meet the cognitive demand of higher level tasks, even if they learn differently or have an IEP. So next steps that we're doing, and as I said, this is baseline. I've even charged our team to be even more specific in thinking about what we are seeing now and how we can drive some of the strategies. But I know some of the things that Dr. Florence and her team is looking at is ensuring that 9th and 10th grade students are tested in NWEA so we understand where students actually are and if they're college ready. So we have an accurate baseline. Targeting school leader support to actually understand the current classroom walkthrough tool, as well as the curriculum and assessments, as well as the AP platform usage. We also want to ensure the school leaders are using the college readiness, ELA, math and walkthrough tools to observe teachers and also provide feedback. That's work that I know the team is already doing and have already increased using the tool. And then also providing professional development aligned to your question that you mentioned, Ms. Peak, on CCP, which is College Credit Plus classes, IB and AP. And also teaching honors. What does it mean for it to be rigorous teaching an honors course? We'll have the increased focus on our student groups. I know that based on last year's OST data, Dr. Florence has charged her team with actually pulling out that student subgroup data, whereas last year they were looking at it more holistically. But now looking at the student subgroup data, pulling in her student support team that both supports our ELL students as well as our special education students to ensure that those groups of students are moving at the same rate. And finally, something that is not here, a strategy that we're doing is building brighter futures. As I said, and I don't want to sound like a broken record, you can only be college and career ready if you're offered the program. If it's not even offered in your school, you don't have a shot. And so building brighter futures and the work we're doing will change this metric over time. And that's all for now. I don't know if there's anything else that the team, any questions or additions you would add? Okay.
Dr. Morgan, I want to comment, and then I'll open it to my colleagues. Looking at this college readiness data, I could cry. It's incredibly disappointing. I have to say, I could cry. I won't, because I have the good fortune of sitting in this seat where I have a responsibility towards it, as do you. I know that there are many challenges that, I don't want to place blame. I know that there are many challenges that our district faces that are the result of being a high poverty district. We are constantly putting, effort towards our partners, our city leaders, in supporting us in those areas. But this is a board goal for a reason. I want to make sure that we don't lose, I know that you won't, but I want to make sure that we don't lose sight of this as we pursue the state's rating around college and career readiness, because the state's rating, as I've said 100 times now, changes every few years, right? And it does benefit our students to increase those pathways in our schools, but these goals have to be our true north. I would push you to think about how we are scaffolding learning in the earlier grades. I know I asked about this in algebra when when you had reported to us on the algebra goal. I'm not a teacher, but I don't think that we can achieve at the level that we need to if we're only looking at what we're doing in these grades. We have to make sure, and I would love to hear more in future about how you all are scaffolding, especially when it comes to math and reading in the earlier grades, so that our students can be ready, because by the time they're in high school, if they don't have the foundational skills, it's too late for many students to build them. And I personally, I see this data, but I also know students, as you said, who are some of our top students in CMSD who go off to college and come back and talk to me, and they tell me that they realize that they didn't know math, right? And it's important to celebrate these pockets of excellence, but 23% at an early college high school is still not excellence to me, right? And so I know we've got a lot of work to do, but we've got to continue to buckle down on this and not get derailed by some of the state requirements, which, as I've said, have changed 4 times in my 6 years on the board. And I don't say this to in any way chastise you, but to underscore why the board has made algebra, reading, or literacy, and college readiness goals 8% from last year to a 25% hope expectation goal by 2030 is still not that high. We can only do what we can do, but I want to make sure that we continue to work toward this, and that's why we continue to monitor it, right? Everybody's much more excited about building brighter futures and talking about that, but here we are at 9:07 p.m. looking at monitoring this goal because it is that important, and we will continue to do that. So thank you for, again, the transparency. I look forward to the day when we can be proud of our progress on these measures. Ms. LeBron.
Thank you. I have some questions that are, I waited for this portion, but some of them will be tied to the Building Brighter Futures presentation as well. One of my questions is around a question that I asked about at the November 19th meeting. I asked about will there be info on pathways and college courses before school choice opens up? And I remember you saying that the school finder tool was being worked on and that specific course availability would be developed later in the spring. Later in the spring, I guess I'm just a little confused because if choices have to be made between January 5th and February 27th, what is later in the spring? Will they have that information on time?
Yeah, great question. So two things. What they'll have in the choice portal are the pathways and the types of programs that'll be offered. So if it's AP and the types of courses that the school has offered this year, and also the pathway. So we could say, as we did on the maps that were showed on the recommendation, that a school may have an engineering pathway, or it may have a teaching professions pathway. That information will be in the school finder tool so families can make a choice. What we won't have are the actual specific courses, because that's determined by the teacher, which then needs to be determined by the staffing and scheduling, that we won't have. We could say this is what is currently offered, and assuming that all the teachers go over, that the enrollment meets the needs for it to be there, we could say list all the courses that are currently offered, but it may not be the exact course. But we can say the types of pathways. We can say if AP will be offered there. We could probably even go as far as to say AP ELA, an AP math of some type, of AP social science, but knowing those specific courses is really highly dependent on the teacher, particularly for college dual enrollment and College Credit Plus. I believe teachers need to have a master's degree. There's certain qualifications, so that is why that level of detail wouldn't be there, but we will be able to announce the types of programs, the career pathways, and the types of college pathways.
Thank you. I had another question, and this is primarily for something that Mr. Dean shared at the August 19th meeting, but we talked about School Link's platform being made available for 8th grade. It was available for 8th graders in August, and it was going to be made available for 6th and 7th graders the following month, so September-ish, right? I'm interested, and not necessarily for right now, but I'm interested in updates about use, like are the 6th and 7th graders actually using it, and also what are the conversations around the resources available on the platform, because I'm wondering, like, if you have resources, but you don't necessarily understand or have the supports in place. Because one of the slides in the Building Brighter Future presentation talked about having guidance counselors in the high schools. But if we're talking about creating pipelines and pathways for college readiness to meet these CC college career readiness, military readiness measures, we need to make sure that we're having these conversations earlier, right? And so that was the reason for my question in August. So really kind of just figuring out, like, where are we in using those tools, but also what are the supports in place for it?
We definitely will accept that charge to bring more information back there, but I also see Mr. Dean is here. I don't know if there's anything you want to add there.
Absolutely. So anytime you say school links, I get excited about that. So that was a charge for our team to start that process this school year. So I can say over nearly 90% of our 8th grade scholars have completed the interest survey. And so that process is to help them get ready for the school choice fair. In addition to that, they're able to identify what their passions are, their interests, and their aptitudes. All that is in the process of them thinking about the different pathways that we'll be offering in 26-27. In addition, those courses and those pathways, those videos, and all those options are already in the School Links platform for them to look to. So prior to them going to the school choice fair, they can already have an idea of what they'll get into. And just to kind of add more about the process too, we've given them plenty of resources to prep them for the actual fair. So our counselors, our 5 Cs and principals have access to this information now. And I will say for our 6th and 7th grade scholars, they have also engaged in the program. I can say over 50% of each grade level have already started the interest survey process, done several different activities within the platform. So it's a lot of uses in it right now.
Thank you.
Dr. Sridhar.
Thank you, Chair Ellicott. Dr. Morgan, I really want to just re-emphasize a point that the chair made and ask a more specific question the next time we get to monitor this particular goal, the next time you bring us data about this particular goal, I would very much want to see specifics about what this forward-looking approach will look like, right? I mean, you know, your 2 slides about what's not working and what is a strategy is fine, but you know, one of the key features of Building Brighter Futures is that we are greatly increasing and actually getting to the point where all students have the opportunity to take Algebra 1 in 8th grade. In that world, what should the community expect from a college readiness perspective when that occurs? I appreciated your presentation a few weeks ago when you talked about that Algebra 1 goal, where you took the approach of not just looking at what happens this year and next year, but what happens in 5 years when our current 4th and 5th graders will be ready to take algebra, and what proactive interventions we're putting in place. I'd like to see a similar approach to this goal. I will say, and you know, you've heard me say this before, and your team has heard me say this before. In my mind, this is the goal. You know, the other 2 goals that we have really are ones that build up to this goal, and really the focus of the goal of increasing college readiness is to put the decision of whether or not a student who is a graduate of CMSD chooses to go to a college an actual choice. This data that you're sharing with us is showing us that our students don't have a choice. Our students are forced not to go to college, even if they want to do so because we're not preparing them. When we get to this goal of 25%, that means that 1 in 4 of our graduates will then have the agency to make the choice of whether they will want to go or not. It's, you know, it's still not where we want to be, but and I know you understand that. But this is just a marker for the next monitoring presentation to be more specific on the data of what is our future-facing thing. Thank you.
Yeah, definitely take that charge for us to get more information. And you underscore a point that we're learning through the Bold Goals process, because sometimes when we're preparing it, we're looking at it and we have to respond. Like looking at the data we looked at today, like to be honest, when we were looking at that the first time and looking at the linear chart, seeing where we were compared to last year when it's different groups of students, you didn't have the strategies, how helpful is that to actually understand the value add? So there's a lot that we're learning, and I imagine we'll be bringing a lot to you guys in terms of what we're learning and what may be better CEO measures to measure. I do agree that one that we look at where we're monitoring a cohort over time is one where you're following a group of kids, and it's actually a cohort of kids, and strategies that you're doing that you're learning about over time that can help us understand a little bit more about where we'll be in the future state. And so I appreciate that charge. And I just want to let you know we're learning that across the board on all these. Not that the goals themselves are the wrong goals, but that the things that we're looking at to monitor to see the value add of the strategies are things that we're wondering what are better predictors to prepare us.
Chair, if I may follow up on that. I understand. This is why the interim goals process took us that long, right? I mean, it took us a couple of iterations to get to where we needed to be. And if the community recalls, when we adopted these interim goals, we fully did so with the recognition that some of these may be imperfect. So I acknowledge that. And this, I want to ask another follow-up. We've talked about AP offerings, and you talked about AP offerings extensively today. There are some schools in the district that have a very robust AP offering. And yet, those schools are not showing up in our top lists in terms of increasing the percentage or having a high percentage of students that are college ready. I would like to see some data about enrollment in those AP courses. What is the current existing situation, the current state, as we think about AP courses across the district? And how that is actually contributing towards college readiness. And again, this should really just be a part of the next monitoring presentation about this goal, and what we think our future state will be with Building Better Futures when we think about a different kind of a configuration when it comes to AP offerings?
Thank you. Mr. Billups?
Thank you, Chair Ellicott. Dr. Morgan, I got a couple questions pertaining to slide number, what is this? Slide 6, I think it is. But my question is around that gap. So I just want to make sure I'm wrapping my head around and understanding correctly. So for the 13% of students who are college ready in ELA, am I safe to assume that if that same group of kids had been ready in math, that number of kids that was college ready would have increased by 13%?
It is saying that based on the indicator for ELA and how they performed on NWEA, 13% of them met that indicator. And what this is also saying in the fall that only 3% met it for math. But to be considered college ready, you need to be proficient in both of them. And so that's why our overall average, if you're looking at the previous slide, is only at 3.28 because it's taking that 13% and the 3% together. Dr. D'Amico, is there anything else you would add to that? Okay. Oh. There you go.
No, you have it correct. That would increase by if all of that 13% of the kids who were college ready in ELA but not in math, if they had also been college ready in math, it would have increased it by that 13 percentage points. That's correct.
Gotcha. Thank you. So my next question would be, kind of signaling the importance of that math goal that the board set. How I'm trying to think how to phrase my question to be fair. But the impact of potentially having more, I think we've learned that we've had less than 100 kids who've had algebra prior to high school. How impactful potentially would that be with building, if the board was to vote for the plan, how impactful could we anticipate this number if kids are able to get that math at an earlier stage in their education?
Great question. And so there are a couple of things I want to distinguish here. You're right. Currently, right now, we have 70 of 2,319 eighth graders enrolled in Algebra 1. Through Building Brighter Futures, we know we'll have the enrollment to potentially increase more students that are enrolled in it. We're not saying all students will be enrolled in Algebra 1 in eighth grade, and we're not also saying all schools will offer it. But we are committed to making sure more will offer it, and we want to get more students who qualify for it to do it. So two things are true with this. One, if they're not even offered the opportunity, they're not getting access to the rigorous courses. So Building Brighter Futures is just step one of a very of the journey we're on. We need to first offer the offering. The second part of it is really ensuring that the instruction is high quality enough that students are successful. Now, our data has shown for students that do take Algebra 1 in eighth grade, last year 75%, either 75% or 76% of them demonstrated proficiency. So there is a sense that students who are being challenged and are ready to take that higher level math actually scored higher than what our ninth graders in the general population did. And so there is, just by offering it doesn't mean that students will automatically be proficient, but if we have more students who can qualify for it and have access to it, our historic data shows that we may even increase our proficiency in Algebra 1.
Thank you. And I have one last question. On that last point on this same slide, I'm just trying to get clarification for myself. That 1% of students with disability and English language learners being college ready, does that also include like workforce and military, or is that just strictly college ready?
That's just strictly college ready on this indicator based on how they test it on NWEA. Yep.
Thank you.
Did you ask? Okay. Ms. LeBron?
Thank you. So again, thinking about the pathways, I keep coming back to the November 5th data that you presented with Building Brighter Futures around 100% of schools will have more offerings than they did before. And we established that with the data that you presented. But I did mention and highlight the discrepancy where like 100% schools might have more, but one school had 7 offerings of college credits and one school had 2. And of those 2 schools that are being merged together, one of them had 0 to begin with. And so I'm wondering, because you had mentioned in the presentation that it's going to take time. I'm wondering if that particular school, knowing that there is such a gap in the offerings, if that school will be on your radar to make sure that they have more offerings in time for Building Brighter Future to actually meet the mission of providing more equity across the district.
Yeah, that it's a great question. Building Brighter Futures is a starting point, and I loved your question when you did that charge, because in this we want to ensure that there's more equity, and even with this, there are schools that are going to be from a stronger starting point. Now, the one thing that is consistent, even looking at this data, all schools have work to do, even some of those that offer more of those. And, Dr. Schroeder, are you even saying that? We can offer 30 AP courses, but if only 6% of the students are indicated as college ready, I wouldn't say off or not, but it could show that there's work to do. But to your question, Ms. LeBron, yeah, Building Brighter Futures is a starting point. And so to know that next year, 100% will offer college and career ready, college being up from 78% where we offer currently, and career being up from 59%. That's a starting point. That doesn't mean that's what's going to happen. Where we start doesn't mean where we're going to evolve to. There may be pathways that change over time based on what the school communities decide to do, determining based on what students may be more successful in, determining on the course offerings. It could even grow over time. We would expect it to grow over time. There's some schools that next year they may offer 1 AP course. And according to the data I shared even tonight, you need to take 3 AP courses and get a 3 or better in it to be qualified under the AP version of that. We're not saying next year that we will offer, the students will be able to qualify for that, but it's a starting point. So there's some schools that are 0. We talked about some of those, and having 1 is a starting point. It's an entry. It's an offering, and it needs to grow over time. So appreciate that charge. And as in all things, you guys are watching us work and holding us accountable to it. And I always ask the community to watch us work as we grow to build this brighter future for our scholars.
Thank you, Dr. Morgan. Is there any other discussion on this presentation? All right. Is there any old business? Is there any new business? The next regular board meeting will be a board business meeting just 1 week from today on Tuesday, December 9th, 2025. This meeting was originally scheduled to be held at Garrett Morgan High School, but the location has been changed to Max S. Hayes High School. The chair will now entertain a motion to adjourn this board work session. Hearing no objection, this meeting is adjourned. Have a good night. See you next week.